Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first Board of Education meeting for the new school year. It is Monday, September 26, 2022. I will start the meeting in a good way with acknowledging the traditional territories that we hold this meeting on. The Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work, and recognizing as well that we are acknowledging the coming Day of Recognition for Truth and Reconciliation Day on September 30th. And many of us are acknowledging that today by wearing our orange shirts of various varieties. I hope that we take time this week and certainly on the 30th to acknowledge the history of residential schools, the challenges that we have to reconcile our work in education with the importance of furthering not only the success of all students, but Indigenous students, and placing ourselves in a context that recognizes the work we have to do towards that goal. I want to also acknowledge and welcome Trustee Rob Painter and Diane McNally back to the table, and recognize as well the return of stakeholders to the table. It is good to have everyone around the table here, acknowledging the GVTA, QP382, QP947, as well as VPVPA, and all our other stakeholders who are either attending or watching. It is always good to have a full table so that we can do this work as an education community together. So thank you very much, everyone. It's good to have everybody back. Can I please have an approval of the agenda? Moved by Tom, seconded by Elaine, and I do understand we have some amendments coming. So I will go first to Trustee McNally for her amendment or amendments.
Thank you. Chair, I have two, one for H1 and one for H2. Let me just find it. So H1, new business, McNally, and if I have a seconder, that A, all motions and votes during the illegal suspension of trustees McNally and Painter be considered invalid, as these were votes of an illegally constituted board according to a ruling of the BC Supreme Court. And B, that the current board chair act expeditiously to create an opportunity for a full legally constituted board to vote on every motion during the illegal suspension period.
Okay, so we have the request to add two motions under new business. Do I have a seconder?
I have one other.
Oh,
Do
sorry.
I have a seconder?
Yeah, there's a seconder for that. So we'll put that for a vote, but I want to deal with these individually before we go to adopting the agenda, because this is a significant change to the agenda we have this evening, and it's already a very packed agenda. Can I deal with these two first, Trustee McNally, or do you want to bring your next one and we can do them all at once?
I would just like to add two to the agenda, and then we know what we're dealing with as far as the agenda goes. And I emailed it to you. Sorry, I didn't get the other one emailed to you. This one, sorry, where are we?
Sorry, Trustee McNally, I'm going to just deal with this one first, and then your second motion, which I haven't received. I only just received the first one 2 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago. So on the first motion to amend, is there any discussion on amending with this first motion and adding it to H1? Seeing no discussion, so I'll call the question on adding this to the agenda. Please signify by raising your hand to add this to the agenda.
Sorry, yes, in favor.
And any opposed? And I don't see Trustee Leonard or Trustee Whitaker. I think we may have lost Trustee Whitaker, but it was defeated. So that motion is defeated. Trustee McNally, you can bring your second edition.
Sorry, Chair, could you read out the vote, please?
The vote was defeated with Trustee Painter, Trustee McNally, and Trustee Duncan in favor, and the balance opposed, with Trustee Whitaker absent. I think she has been removed from the meeting for technical. I don't see her, so we'll just put her as absent. So sorry, Trustee
Okay.
McNally, your next motion. Go ahead.
Thank you. That the individuals involved in the vote to suspend trustees McNally and Painter issue a written public apology for their actions.
Okay, do you have a seconder? No seconder, so the motion, oh, Trustee Duncan, is that a second? Just checking.
Yeah, it's a second.
Okay, it's a second. So any discussion on adding that to the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on adding that motion to the agenda. All those in favor? And those opposed? And I'm just checking to see if we have Trustee Whitaker back. I think we have her back. Trustee Whitaker, are you there?
I am in favor. Sorry, I'm having.
You're in favor? Okay, so that is trustees. I've got the vote. Thank you, everyone. Hands down. So it's Trustee Painter, McNally, Duncan, and Whitaker in favor, and the balance opposed. So the motion to add fails. And just because I think there was some technical issues, did you manage to hear that first motion Trustee McNally tried to add to the agenda before you dropped off?
No, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Any other amendments to the agenda, Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just also wanted to add a motion under H new business, and the motion, again, just bear with me, would be that the Board of Education of SD61 Greater Victoria rescind the motion from February 2022 to suspend Trustee Rob Painter and Trustee Diane McNally.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Trustee McNally. Is there any discussion?
Can
Trustee
you
Waters.
repeat it? I'm sorry.
Sorry, Anne. Sorry, Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Duncan, can you please repeat the motion so Trustee Whitaker can hear? Certainly.
That the Board of Education of Greater Victoria, SD61, I think we got that inverted, but we know how they usually start, rescinds the board motion from February 2022, suspending Trustee Rob Painter and Trustee Diane McNally.
Okay, and it has been moved and seconded to add to the agenda. So any discussion? And then I saw Jordan and Elaine. So Jordan, I'll go to you first and then Elaine.
Just that we as a board haven't had a chance to meet and discuss the decision or receive any information from our council. And so I don't want us to go about this the wrong way. Obviously, it's really important that we understand and move forward in a good way. So while I think we obviously need to have a motion to rescind, I don't feel prepared to do that in a good way tonight because we don't have the information that we need. So I just want to be really clear that I'm not wanting to add it to the agenda tonight, not because I don't want to see this happen, but just because we haven't had an opportunity to do it in the right way.
Thanks,
That's
Jordan. I'll go to Elaine. Yeah. Thanks, Jordan. I'll go to Elaine, but then I've got Trustee Rob Painter and Trustee Diane McNally next. So you guys can put your hands down. Elaine, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree that there are steps that the board will have to take, but as Trustee Waters has pointed out, we have had no opportunity. We got this late Friday. We've had no opportunity to discuss it. And I think a special meeting should be called after we have heard all the steps that we will need to go forward and make. And I believe that there might be more than just the one before us right now. And so I think that would take a meeting to hear from staff and legal counsel on all of the steps that we would be expected to move forward with. And like I say, while I don't disagree that this is going to happen, if we keep doing it in a piecemeal fashion, I would rather it be all in one meeting and everything happen all together, and we do it as a block moving forward, because I think that would be the best use of everyone's time and energy, because there might be something we've missed along the way. And so I think that I would like to ask staff and the board chair to schedule a special meeting for this once staff and everybody have been able to talk about what the decision
Point of order,
was.
Chair.
Yep.
Go ahead, Rob.
My concern is that it feels like we're launching into a substantive discussion about the matter rather than the simple decision to add it to the agenda or not. It feels like this is the
Sure.
kind of
No, thank you.
conversation we would have there.
Thanks, Rob. Point noted. So yeah, we're just right now, folks are just debating on adding this to the agenda, but I appreciate everybody is trying to unpack a lot with this. So let's be
Understood.
gracious with folks who are working to unpack this together. Let's do it together as best we can. Rob, you had your hand up, and then Trustee Diane McNally next.
No, that was my comment. I'm done. Thank
Okay.
you.
No, thank you, Rob. Trustee Diane McNally, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I'm sure that I'm in favor of adding this. I'm sure the board could choose to appeal the BC Supreme Court decision that these actions were ultra vires, but I certainly hope we don't go that way. We've spent enough of the kids' money on things we shouldn't have spent it on.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call, oh, Nicole, you want to close?
Yeah, I just wanted to contextualize, if I may, in closing for my colleagues. So the reason that I think it's important to include it on this board agenda is because we have our colleagues back at the table. So from a procedural point of view, you know, to rescind the motion that suspended them would unblock what would be preventing them from sitting at our table. I absolutely appreciate that there's some further discussions that need to occur and that we can do that at another meeting, but we do have our colleagues back at the table. And the only thing preventing them from being at the table is this outstanding motion, board motion. So to me, it's just a procedural issue that would allow us to unblock their participation and would not prevent further discussion. So hopefully folks see the importance of having it added to this agenda. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole. And just for, I realize we closed, but just for a point of clarification around that, for those who are paying attention, and I know a lot are, as soon as the judge did make their ruling, it made the trustees ruling, the board's ruling null and void. So there is no block. It is just a motion that exists that is no longer in effect active. So we will have to change that. But anyways, that's just making sure that we're clear on that. Okay, we're closed. So all those in favor of the motion, and Nicole, sorry, can you remind everyone of the motion, just because we've had some discussion?
Yeah, so it's that the Board of Education of SD61 Greater Victoria rescinds the February 2022 motion suspending Trustee Rob Painter and Trustee Diane McNally.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify. And those opposed? And the motion fails. Any other amendments to the agenda, please? Rob Painter, go ahead.
Chair, I'd like to request trustee report at C2, what is it, A or 1?
C2A, yes, C2A.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? Kim, sorry, Secretary Treasurer Morris, you're on mute.
Sorry, that's okay. Were you adding some correspondence?
Oh, yes, thank you. We have correspondence as well to add to B under B7 and B8. Letters of response from the District of Saanich and the Town of the Royal regarding crossing guards to B7 and B8. Secretary Treasurer Morris, is that correct? I think that's them.
Correct. Is there also another letter that came not regarding crossing guards, but from an HR perspective?
Oh, yes, right. Sorry. Yes. So B9, thank you, was a BCTF and BCPC letter regarding updates on bargaining. Okay, Anne?
Can you just add a quick board verbal from me too?
Yep, C2B?
Sure, I can be a B.
Sure, let's be a B. C2B, C2A, Rob, C2B, and okay, Nicole?
Same for me, please, Chair.
Sure, C2C, Trustee Nicole Duncan. Okay, Rob and Nicole. Okay, any other additions to the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. We will go to approval of the minutes. Can we approve these all at once, or do we need to pull any of them? Okay, can I have a motion to approve A, B, and C as a block? Moved by Tom, seconded by Elaine. Any discussion? Trustee Rob Painter?
similar to a recent conversation, I request that any reference to suspension for myself and Trustee McNally include a reference to the judge's decision making that suspension ultra various, or that was ultra various to the school board's authority. And I understand that it'll require additional discussion, but that's my request anyway.
So, okay, is that an amendment to those minutes? Is that what you're asking for?
That I am requesting that amendment.
Okay, is that amendment seconded? Trustee McNally seconded. Discussion. Trustee Whitaker, and then Elaine.
Thank you. And I absolutely agree with Trustee Painter that the minutes should reflect that. We did have some thoughts on that, but I do think that it should be one motion that is going to pass, that we're going to do that for every set of minutes. And I think as much as I would like to approve this now, I don't want to piecemeal each minute. I want to vote on all of the minutes and have them all changed. So I appreciate Trustee Rob Painter bringing this forward. But I do hope that the board will consider, I mean, if you approve this one, that we will still consider amending the previous minutes to say the same.
Thank you. Elaine?
I agree with Trustee Whitaker that there's probably more minutes beyond the 3 that are in front of us that would have that that request. And so that's why I suggested a special meeting, at which time we would go through all of the steps that would need to be taken to bring Trustee McNally and Rob Painter back with all of those mentions taken off of all of the minutes. So I won't approve the amendment this time, but I do hope that we can have the conversation with all of the amendments that are needed at one point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rob, yeah, go ahead. This is your amendment, so I guess I could have let you open, but okay, go ahead. My apologies. Go ahead.
I would certainly entertain a motion to refer. I just like the idea of a placeholder being out there, knowing that this is business to be addressed at some point in time.
Okay, I think
I'll move to refer it to our meeting where we are going to discuss all of this planning, if that is the will of the board.
Sure. So there's a motion. We can get some help from staff. I mean, I feel like we have these minutes here. I think the previous discussion was that we could move these minutes and deal with the sanction language changes all at once, regardless of these being moved or not. So I would prefer Trustee Whitaker if we could.
I'll withdraw that. But I do hear what Trustee Rob Painter is saying, and I don't want to lose the placeholder either. Okay.
Yeah, and I think if I can get some nods from the board, I think we understand the importance of this, and we appreciate that we're going to move in this direction together. So I'm not seeing any shakes of hands or wild flailing whales. So I think we're good on that. Okay, and staff have noted it too, and our staff don't let us forget this stuff. So we can move to approve these 3 sets of minutes. All those in favor, please signify. And opposed? Abstentions? And Angie, I don't think I got your vote.
Sorry, my technology keeps glitching. In favor, please.
Yep. In favor. Okay, so that is carried with Trustee Rob Painter and Trustee Diane McNally opposed, and the balance in favor. Business arising from minutes.
Chair.
Oh, abstained. My apologies.
Abstain.
Thank you. My apologies. So Trustee McNally, Trustee Painter abstained, and the balance in favor. Keeping me on my toes. I trust you will do that the remainder of the meeting. Thank you very much. So we will continue to A4, business arising from the minutes. Is there business arising? Seeing none, I'll go to A5, 2021-2022 Audit Findings Report, Lenora Lee, KPMG, Auditor's Presentation. Welcome, Lenora Lee. Great to have you here. I will turn the floor over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to spend a few moments on the highlights of the Audit Findings Report, which is included in your package starting on page 25. The annual financial statement audit is substantially complete, and we are prepared to finalize our auditor's report after approval of the financial statements by the board. We were able to be on site this year and conducted our audit fieldwork at the end of July with the assistance of management, and are in a really good position here to finalize this audit. The auditor's report as drafted is a clean and unqualified opinion. It indicates that the financial statements are prepared in compliance with the rules that the province and the Ministry of Education requires School District 61 to follow. The audit findings report was also discussed and presented in detail with the audit committee a couple weeks ago, and we were able to have some discussion around each of the matters that are described. Overall, just in terms of materiality, we apply a materiality of 4.6 million to the audit of the financial statements. And so what that means is when I speak about an unqualified opinion, a clean opinion, it indicates that there's no errors in excess of 4.6 million. In fact, in the audit, there were no corrected or uncorrected audit differences. And so the draft statements that we received on the first day of the audit are the same as those that you have in front of you. As well, they are consistent with the financial numbers presented to you throughout the course of the year. So overall, a very positive position to be in, that I see a number of school district audits throughout the summer, and this is the only one that I've seen with both no corrected and no uncorrected audit differences. In the audit findings report, we also confirmed that there were no significant control deficiencies that were noted in the course of our work. And we also confirm our independence, that there was no other services provided that would impair our ability to issue an independent auditor's report. I'll just touch on a couple areas of focus of the audit, and these are primarily related to the major streams of transactions, or where the monetary dollars are most significant in the financial statements. The first relates to capital assets. The school district expended approximately 34 million in fiscal 22 on capital asset additions. Those included a number of capital renovation projects, as well as seismic upgrades, most notably Vic High. The school district also entered into an agreement with Capital Regional Housing Corporation to provide access to land for affordable housing, and that represented an additional 4.3 million that was recognized in the capital fund in fiscal 2022. Our audit procedures in this area generally involve agreeing transactions to source documentations, reviewing that the amounts recorded in the statements agree to the amounts paid to third-party contractors, and that the capital grants received from the province agree to the amounts that they independently confirm to us. And there was no issues noted in the testing performed in that area. You'll note there was one change in accounting policy that was applied during the year, and this was required for all school districts in BC. So it was a change that all 60 adopted in fiscal 2022. It relates primarily to a timing difference and isolated only to the capital fund. So it was a non-cash transaction and did not impact the day-to-day operations or operating fund of the school district. What it involved is essentially an earlier recognition of disposals of capital assets. In previous years, we would have discussed that some school districts recognize amortization starting a year after assets are placed into service. And in the current year, the ministry required all school districts to record amortization and disposals with a partial year recognition starting in the year assets are placed into or removed from service. So overall, that resulted in an approximate reduction in accumulated surplus, again, only in the capital fund, of about 1.4 million. Our audit work did not identify any issues in this area, and we did confirm the amounts directly with the amounts that had been provided by the ministry as guidance. The next area of focus relates to salaries and benefits, one of the largest expenses of the school district. We audit this area through both comparison to prior years as well as comparison to budget. Where there are significant differences, we drill down into further detail to understand where those variances arise and if they are consistent with our knowledge of the business and supporting documents. We noted no issues in that particular area. And then lastly, in terms of revenue and deferred revenue, this is an area where we confirm again directly with the ministry the amounts that are expected to be in the financial statements. We compare the amounts that the ministry reports to us directly with those that are reported in the financial statements. We also look to the classification of revenue, whether those amounts have been recorded appropriately in the operating fund, special purpose fund, and capital fund. The amounts confirmed, we noted reconciled to the financial statements without any differences. In the current year, the ministry did release guidance in regards to an operating surplus policy and disclosure. It notes 3 areas of recommended internal restrictions as it relates to the operating surplus. These have been noted in the notes to the financial statements, and any restrictions have been categorized in those areas. And lastly, in terms of audit risks, we do perform procedures on all audits, regardless of size and industry, over the risk of fraud as it relates specifically to management override of controls. And what that means is that management is in a position to record entries at year end or entries that would not otherwise be detected through internal controls. And as a result, that becomes a focus area for us when we conduct our audit. We review items such as year-end entries, journal entries that require any significant estimates or judgments, or that could be susceptible to bias. We had no issues to bring to your attention in this area. The last item I just thought I'd mention is in regards to future accounting standards. We've spoken about this one particular standard in previous years. It relates to asset retirement obligations. This standard will be effective for the fiscal 2022 year, and so 2023 year, sorry. And so in the current year, we'll continue to work with management on the actual recording of that entry. Asset retirement obligations is an accounting standard that will impact only the capital fund again, and it results in earlier recognition of liabilities or costs associated with removing capital assets from service. The ministry will have additional guidance as well as templates to assist school districts with adopting this standard consistently across the province. Those were the highlights that I wanted to mention in the audit findings report. Again, as noted, it was a very clean process. We received the full support of management, very timely responses to any of our inquiries. So we'd really like to express our appreciation for all of your assistance in that regard. Happy to address any questions.
Thanks, Lenora. Trustees, typically during presentations, we don't ask questions, and we do have the audit committee report later on the agenda. But given, so actually before we do, I'm just going to go to Superintendent and then possibly to the Secretary Treasurer. Is the time for questions on the audit report? Is that going to come later under the operations or the audit committee meeting? Because typically we don't do questions at the board meeting at presentations, either through Deb or Secretary Treasurer Morris.
In my opinion, this would be a time for trustees to ask the auditor the question. I don't think the auditor is staying for the entire meeting. I'll be presenting the financial statements later, but in terms of the audit findings report, now is the chance to speak to the auditor directly.
Thank you for that direction. Okay, I'll open the floor for trustees to have any questions asked and answered. Trustee Whitaker, and then Trustee Duncan. Trustee Whitaker, you're on mute.
Dear, oh dear. Thank you. And thank you again, Lenora. It's always nice to see you and to be able to ask questions of you every year. And I was really happy that you mentioned the asset retirement obligations. It was one area that I felt I didn't have a good understanding. And I guess my question to you is, like, can you give me some examples of what types of assets might fall under this? I mean, I went to maybe playgrounds, but just a little bit more clear as to what type of assets would leave us with an obligation after disposal.
Sure. So the standard requires that where there are legislative requirements to remove assets in a particular manner, that those are the assets in scope. So probably the most significant example that is impacting the sector is asbestos. Currently, the accounting for asbestos is that when a building is demolished that contains asbestos, the cost is recognized at that time. The new standard will require that as an asset is placed into service and used, that the obligation or the future cost associated with removing the asbestos is recognized on the financial statements.
Thank you. And if I may, I have one other question.
Sure,
It
go ahead.
has to do with P3, the public-private partnerships. And curious, again, as an example, and I just wanted clarification. For me, it seems that this would be the relationship that could be the relationship that we have with Pacifica at the Burnside location. Would that be true?
I haven't seen all the details of that particular agreement at this time. What would be in scope here would be agreements that could involve design, build, operate, maintain. There's a new definition as to what constitutes a P3 agreement. And in that case, the accounting would follow in terms of how the assets and liabilities are recognized.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker and Lenora. Any further questions? Trustee Duncan and then Trustee Rob Painter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Lee, for being here again this year. Appreciate your time. I just had one question for you, and it relates to the materiality that's been set for this financial year, and I understand that's 4.6 million. I wonder whether there were any errors or omissions either raised by the auditors as part of your audit or by management that fell outside of that materiality.
So applying that materiality to the audit, we determine a posting threshold, it's referred to as. So that posting threshold represents a bit of a de minimis, that if an error is less than de minimis, it would not be tracked and wouldn't be reported or requested for adjustment. And if it is greater than, it would be included in this report and requested for adjustment. So that amount was 230,000 as the de minimis, and there was no adjustments greater than that value. And I don't believe there were adjustments or errors that were noted and in cumulative greater than that amount either.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Trustee Rob Painter, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and Lenora again. Not a surprise, we've got fantastic financial administrators working here in the district. So hearing your positive comments just reflects that. I'm a lay person. I don't normally worry about trying to balance a budget or making sense of numbers in this order of magnitude. And I got to admit, when I hear terms like materiality of 4.6 million, even in a budget of you know, as big as we have, what is it, 260, that's somewhere around right now? I don't know what to do with that. Can you explain to me, like, what is the utility of this to us as trustees? I can understand how it could be relevant for the province. They can look at this and compare it one board to the next, one district to the next. But what is this going to do for us?
Sure. Materiality is generally a measure of the amount of error that could be in the statements, and its utility is that when you are reading these statements and using them to make decisions, that would be a measure of the degree of error that could be within them. It is a measure that is set based on the audit standards, driven by risk. So if the organization were, for example, very quickly growing or has financial challenges, or perhaps has high turnover, history of errors, that would cause us to select a lower materiality, knowing that there may be potential for additional or more errors within the financial statements. Whereas on the flip side, if there are few users, low risk sector, very stable, it may drive us towards the higher end of a range. So the audit standards generally prescribe the range of either a range from 0.5 to 3% of a particular benchmark. And in this case, revenue being the main driver of your operations is that particular benchmark selected for materiality. So it generally gives you an indication of the level of precision in the audit. And it is based on risk of an organization. The measure selected here is, I'd say, right in the middle of that particular range. And it is quite consistent with the selected percentage for many school districts across the province. I hope that provides a bit of background, but happy to expand further if needed.
Maybe I'll send you an email sometime. I could imagine we could go on for some time answering my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments for Lenora Lee from KPMG? If not, on behalf of the board, thank you, Lenora, for the work that you always do. It is always fantastic. I echo Trustee Rob Painter's sentiments that we have fantastic financial staff here, and your excellent reports are reflective of their work. But thank you for your work as well. We always appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
So we'll go now down to, we have no student achievement district presentations or community presentations. We'll go to correspondence. We have the 6 pieces listed here, as well as 3 additional pieces around letters from the District of Saanich, District of View Royal to the school district, and then a letter regarding BCTF, BCPC. Do trustees want to pull any of these letters for discussion, response, or direction to the chair? Trustee Nicole Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would like to pull B3.
Okay, B3. Anyone else want to pull anything? Trustee Rob Painter. You're on mute. You probably know that.
I do all my best work on mute. I apologize, you don't have the number in front of me, but just wanted to make a comment about the BCTF letter.
Okay, that would be B9. So we'll pull that if staff can help me remember so I don't forget. Elaine?
Although they're not for people to see because they weren't in our packet, I'd like to pull B7 and B8. There's 2 crossing guard letters.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other letters to pull, trustees? Seeing and hearing none, I'll go to Trustee Duncan. We'll do these in order. So Trustee Duncan, B3 first. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks. So through you to either the superintendent or secretary treasurer, I just wanted to clarify. So we responded to MLA Kirkpatrick. We indicated that we have not received any notice from the ministry that we will not have certain projects approved. And I just wanted to clarify, because what I'm hearing in the community is that possibly the shoreline seismic upgrade has been indefinitely parked, for lack of a better term. I'm not sure what the ministry term would be, but that funding is not certain any longer for that particular seismic upgrade. And so I'd like just to seek some clarity through the chair, if I may, to either the superintendent or the secretary treasurer. Has that seismic upgrade been indefinitely parked? Maybe you can help me with the terminology. And so funding is not currently available.
Thanks, Trustee Duncan. Either to Superintendent Whitten or Secretary Treasurer Morris would like to field that one.
I can start.
Secretary
and then
Treasurer Morris.
Yep. So this is the second year of the capital plan where we checked in with the nations to find out what their desire was in terms of the capital plan and the reflection of shoreline on it. There's more conversation to be had there. So you'll note it was not on last year's capital plan submission nor this one. We have not had any notification that funding is gone. In fact, I would hazard a guess that funding was not in place. I think that the project was supported through a capital plan submission and moved into the business case development stage. And at that point, that's where it's being held. And until it appears on a capital plan again, we won't be able to advance that project. And so we're hoping to have conversation and find out the desires of the nations as it relates to shoreline, and bring that back to the board and move forward with that seismic project. But nothing formal saying that it's dismissed or that funding was there and now is no longer there.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. Trustee Duncan, is that sufficient answer for your question?
No, I think that clarifies the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go now to Trustee Elaine Leonard for 7 and 8, and then Trustee Rob Painter after that, just so we follow these in an order. So Trustee Leonard, go ahead.
Thank you. So these letters were received recently, and this is the first opportunity that we've been able to discuss them in a public forum. And I was just wondering, from maybe staff's point of view, how the crossing guard issue was going to be moved forward through the district, or if you anticipate it coming to an education or an ops meeting to have the discussion in public about where our shortfalls in funding may be, or are some of the difficulties we've had over the summer. And I'll back up. I just want to thank staff so much for having a crossing guard at every place for the first day of school. And it's not been through, it's been through lots of hard work, but the funding partners that we've been trying to get in place are not all there. And so when could we talk about a meeting beyond just receiving this as correspondence, I guess is my question.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Deputy Superintendent Whitten or Secretary Treasurer Morris?
Yeah, I think you can anticipate that we would have information coming forward in a future meeting date. I'm not sure that we have a date set for that, but if the board wishes for a report to come out with where we're at now and where we may be headed, we could certainly prepare that.
Thank you.
Trustee
If I
Leonard?
could follow up.
Yep.
So I would like to request that we have that meeting so that this board can receive the report and then move it forward for the next board to further that work, because I think we do have a lot of work ahead of us to try and make sure that going forward, all of the crossing guards will be funded, because they currently are not.
Thank you. I'll make a note of that, Trustee Leonard. It sounds like perhaps another special meeting on this is going to be needed. I don't disagree with you. We still have some work to do with our partners on this to make sure we have crossing guards at every site to keep our kids safe. So thank you for that. Jane Massey, sorry. So yeah, go ahead as one of our stakeholders on this. I appreciate you wanting to chime in, please.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for the work they are doing on this, because these crossing guard hours have really meant some meaningful hours of added to our QP staff that are giving them, you know, some of them closer to full-time hours. So anything we can do to help further this, we're ready and willing to work with you and keep these hours and this funding coming to the district. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jane. I had a chance to meet two at Esquimalt at Macaulay, and they were both they shared your exact sentiments. So thank you for that. Trustee Rob Painter. Sorry, I was distracted a bit by Trustee Ferris's very cute dog. Trustee Painter, please go ahead with B9 around the BCTF, BCPC.
Yeah, I've always got time for cute dogs, no question. This is, and I apologize, you'll probably get this more than once tonight, Chair, that just because of technical difficulties accessing the agenda package, I'm not as prepared as I would like to be tonight. The issue I wanted to raise with the letter from BCTF regarding BCPC and negotiations is that although we are the employer and might be seen to be on one side of this discussion or another, my concern is that what we all want is a stable system moving forward with clarity and some level of certainty for our staff. And so to the extent possible that we can express our interest in seeing these negotiations move forward, and to have the confidence that that all effort is being placed on advancing these negotiations, I really think that that is an important message that we send forward to BCPC. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rob Painter. And as stated previously, but I'll state here as well, we are back together here in whatever slow pace we need to take to help keep each other and help each other move through. You have it from me as the chair, so I will be gracious to give you whatever levity or support, pardon me, you need. Okay, so that is correspondence. We'll now go to trustee reports, chair's report. We have the 2022-23 board work plan for review. We'll go to C2 trustee reports. Staff, I'm sorry. I think I may not have the numbering right. If I get these wrong, please correct me. But I believe C2A in trustee reports, first is trustee Rob Painter. So trustee Painter, your 2-minute verbal presentation time starts now. So please begin.
Thank you. There's a fairly famous quote by Winston Churchill that democracy is the worst form of government except for all those other forms that have been tried. There's a less well-known quote from Winston Churchill that it goes, at the bottom of all the tributes paid to democracy is the little man or person walking into the little booth with a little pencil, making a little cross on a little bit of paper. No amount of rhetoric or voluminous discussion can possibly diminish the overwhelming importance of that point. For me, this matters at the core of the decision handed down by Madam Justice Hardwick this past Friday. Members of this board made what I believe to be an unprecedented decision to strip their constituents of the elected representatives chosen in a free and fair public election process. In taking this action, the trustees involved made the decision to replace the choice of the community that we all represent with their own preferences. I've noted on social media over the weekend that the position has been offered that an organization must take action to protect its staff from bullying and harassment. I completely agree with this statement. Bullying was at the heart of the very reason I first ran as a trustee, and has been an issue I have revisited a number of times over the past 11 years, only to fail to even obtain agreement about the meaning of the terms we use to discuss this behavior. I will, however, Chair, if this issue is raised here tonight or elsewhere by members of the board, call upon you for the permission to freely discuss the process that was employed that led to the investigation and my subsequent suspension, and how that process relates to the ones defined in our own regulations and by WorkSafe. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Painter, and I serve at the will of the board, so I appreciate your comments. I will now go to Trustee Ann Whitaker. Your 2 minutes to present verbal presentation start now.
Again, thank you very much. I want to thank and acknowledge that we are a full table, and just how grateful I am to have all of our stakeholders, rights holders. I'm not sure if you are here, but I am really pleased that everyone is joining us again. I wasn't able to do this report in writing because this is about a meeting which I attended on September 23rd. I had the privilege of chairing the BC School-Centered Mental Health Coalition, and I just wanted to bring to attention the Family Support BC.com, which is the Family Support Institute. I had the pleasure of Heather Beach making a presentation. The Family Support Institute supports families, their siblings of our exceptional learners. And while we know that there are concerns over the new funding model and this moving to the hub, I would strongly support any families that are feeling a struggle to please reach out, take a look at that website and see if there are resources there for you. They are there to advocate for you. I also had the privilege of a presentation from Andrea Paquette from the Stigma Free Society on the Student Mental Health Toolkit. And I raised that one in particular because I am aware that our staff will be participating in Pro D on this as well. So I think that's really exciting. And I just also wanted to make the comment that also heard about the Pan-Canadian Summit and the K-12 workplace, which is coming up in November. And congratulations to our own Lisa Bayless, who will be presenting on her work with teachers and supporting their mental wellness there. And that's what I've got for you. And again, I apologize, but the timeline just wasn't there to put this in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. That was exactly 2 minutes. So well done. We'll go to Trustee Nicole Duncan for her report. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will be brief. I just wanted to take the opportunity to say welcome back to our stakeholders, to rights holders. Really wonderful to see everybody back around the table, and I'm looking forward to us moving forward in a very collaborative fashion together. I wanted to also take the opportunity to welcome back our board colleagues, Rob Painter and Diane McNally. It's wonderful to see you back around the table, and I'm looking forward to doing good work as a board together. And I also wanted to say a very warm welcome to our Director of Human Resources. I believe this is the first board meeting that Mr. Vera has attended. We've just met, so welcome. Very nice to see you around our table, and look forward to working with you in the future. And then finally, I wanted to acknowledge what a privilege it was to both attend the board meeting where we approved as a board the first Métis Nation Education Agreement, but also the signing ceremony afterward. It really was a pleasure to be able to meet in person, which we haven't done for quite some time, and to meet some rights holders and stakeholders that I hadn't had the privilege of meeting before. There's some really innovative and dynamic work going on in education, and I think certainly the Métis Nation Education Agreement and all of the work that went into that is a good example of that innovative work. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan, and yes, welcome, Director Vera. And I think, and just add on to the welcomes, this may be the first, I think, open board meeting with everyone at the table and our new Associate Superintendent, Tom Arts. So Tom, welcome to the senior team. Lots of welcomes around, but you have the full screen here, which perhaps won't be forever. So, but welcome to the team. Good to have you on board, and thank you for those reports, trustees. I'll put myself on mute. Okay, we'll go now down to board committee reports, Education Directions, Education Policy and Directions Committee. The draft minutes from the September 12th, 2022 meeting are for information. We do have recommended motions. So the first is there at its September 21st, 2020 regular board meeting. The board carried the following resolution. The resolution is there for information. And it reads, draft Superintendent Evaluation Policy Option 2 as presented, and further that the policy remain in draft until the first evaluation is concluded, and further that the board review the draft evaluation policy immediately after completing the superintendent evaluation process. The first recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, rescind the second part of the original motion from September 21st, 2020, that the Board of Education of School District 61 adopt the draft Superintendent Evaluation Policy Option 2 as presented, and further that the policy remain in draft until the first evaluation is concluded. So that is the first recommended motion, that we rescind the second part of that motion. It is a recommended motion, so it is on the floor. Do we have any debate or discussion on this? Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I can't support the motion to rescind because I think that this is work that, although it hasn't been completed, I think reviewing the draft was an important commitment that the board made 2 years ago. It is unfortunate that it's been 2 years and the review hasn't taken place. But I think we committed to review the draft after the first evaluation process had been undertaken in accordance with that draft for a good reason, and not affording ourselves the opportunity to review it, I think would be a mistake. And so despite the fact that it's been 2 years, I think we need to, rather than rescind this motion, I think we need to honor the motion and take the steps to review the draft. And I think all the more reason to do so, given that we now have folks back around our table. And so there is an opportunity to conduct a meaningful review and reflect on that first evaluation that the board conducted 2 years ago.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. And just a quick reminder, because it has been so long since we've had stakeholders and rights holders at the table, typical practice is to invite rights holders and stakeholders to speak before trustees speak. In my time as chair, I've been a little bit more flexible in terms of allowing trustees to debate and discuss, and then also allow stakeholders and rights holders to also have an opportunity to have their thoughts heard. I do allow a bit more flexibility there. So just a reminder that if we are discussing or debating something and rights holders or stakeholders do want to have their opinion expressed, please do raise your hand. It'll be an opportunity for you to do so. So we'll now go to any other trustees who want to comment on this motion. Trustee Rob Painter.
I would like to state offhand that I fully echo Trustee Duncan's concerns. I do think an evaluation is a critical part of this. It's how we learn, how we grow, how we do better in the future. Not having been part of the discussion with the Superintendent Evaluation, I have to say I have significant concerns with some of the language here. There are a few identified tasks that a board has within its capacity in this context, and it's performance monitoring of the superintendent, and the old saw of the superintendent being the board's employee. I think is it's a critical one, and so issues of being limited to a single performance review, of having only 2 trustees who get involved in the evaluation process at the start, as opposed to this being a collective approach by the entire board. What I don't see is a connection to the completion of specific identified outcomes identified in the strategic plan. These are all significant limitations that I think really reduces the effectiveness of this as an engagement tool that supports an effective working relationship between superintendent and board. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Elaine?
I'll be supporting the recommended motions. I know that some of the things that we had wanted to move forward, we didn't get to over the last year because other things came up, and we had a large budget program meetings and everything, and a lot of other things came up. So I think we're trying to clean up the language, and if a new board wants to make amendments to how they evaluate their superintendent, I would encourage them to take a look at this after the elections in November. They have their work ahead of them. But I think for us to leave it out there and not have had the time to finalize some of this, I think is not good work on our part. So I see this as trying to lay the groundwork for a new board to then start with a fresh slate, and then they can amend it as they want. But I think that we have to move this forward and out of the draft, and this is the only way forward to do that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Trustee McNally.
Yes, it may seem counterintuitive, but since we haven't done the review, that would be, I mean, it's jumping in off the deep end, but the new board would have a golden opportunity to really get into what a superintendent evaluation can look like. And so I won't be supporting.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on the motion to rescind the second part of the original motion. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed, please signify. Abstentions?
I would like to go with the first one. Sorry, I missed the.
Sorry, Trustee Whitaker, in favor?
So I am in favor of rescinding. That's the question.
Yes, okay, that's what we're on right now. Yeah. So can we call the vote one more time? So I'm going to call the question on the vote to rescind the second part of the original motion from September 21st, 2020. So it's on the vote to rescind. All those in favor, please signify. Opposed? Abstentions? No abstentions. So the motion carries with trustees Rob Painter, trustees Diane McNally, and trustees Nicole Duncan. Opposed, the balance in favor. We'll go to the second recommended motion that the Board of Education of School District 61 move draft policy 2100.1 superintendent evaluation adopted to September 2020 out of draft and formally adopted as presented to establish the process for evaluating the superintendent. It is a recommended motion, so it is on the floor. It's open for discussion. Trustee Whitaker.
I would like to amend this motion, please.
Okay, go ahead.
And I would amend it to, so it read that the Board of Education of School District 61 move draft policy superintendent evaluation adopted September 2020 out of draft and amended to establish the process for evaluating the superintendent and review after each evaluation. Do I have to say review policy after each evaluation? I think it's clear.
Can you say it again, just so we can follow along? And do you have the wording for staff by chance?
Yeah, essentially, I'm just adding and review the policy after each evaluation. I just believe that we did make amendments in the ops meeting, so I want it to say out of draft and amended because it's a new one from 2020, right?
Is
Did we
that
not I mean, maybe it's a point of clarification. Did we not
Sure.
just amend this document? We amended
Sure.
the one that was passed in September 2020, just like a week ago, right?
Sure. Can staff remind us what we did with this last week? Superintendent Whitten or Secretary Treasurer Morris? I do believe we amended it from what I recall, but and that might not necessarily need to formally say that we amended it because it has already been amended. I understand what you're trying to do, Trustee Whitaker, but it might not be necessary.
I just don't
If we've
think
already
those
amended it.
those amendments were not approved by the board. They were approved by an ops committee.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to staff to help us out with this.
I don't believe amendments were made. I think the original document was adopted at or was recommended at the ops meeting.
It was
I
added
don't see any
policy.
redlining on it, so.
Sorry, Trustee Leonard, go ahead.
I said it was ed policy, not ops.
Okay. So Trustee Whitaker, do you want to continue with your amendment then, or what would you like to do?
Absolutely. The key to
Okay.
my amendment is and review after each superintendent evaluation. I want the
Okay,
board to go back and review this policy every single time.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Just want to make sure we have a seconder and then I'm happy to have you motivate. Okay, we have a seconder, Nicole Duncan, Trustee Duncan. So Trustee Whitaker, do you want to motivate further or are you happy with your amendment?
No, I will motivate further and say, I think that this solves the concern that we are having. I don't think it's reasonable for us to go back 2 years ago and review an evaluation of a prior superintendent. But I do think that we should be after every time we evaluate the superintendent, we should be reviewing that process and we should be amending that for both us and the superintendent and for the data and direction that we want to get out of it. So that's the reason for my amendment.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Duncan, as a seconder, you're free to motivate.
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is that although I believe that the review that we committed to as a board 2 years ago was in fact to review the draft in light of some experience actually implementing it. this, I suppose, just embeds some good practice when it comes to, reviewing on an annual basis, hopefully, the evaluation process, and just making sure that we keep up with best practice and we learn as we go, because this is, in fact, I believe, the first time that SD61 Board of Education has adopted a policy like this. So I do support the intention of the motion, and I will be supporting it.
Okay, so it is an amendment on the floor. So is there any further discussion on the amendment? Trustee Waters.
I just wanted to ask the superintendent, just because I know it's important that this is a co-created policy and process, and I personally like the idea of embedding a regular review, but just wanted to make sure that superintendent had an opportunity to comment.
Thank you through the chair. I also benefit from co-creating and collaborating on the process and believe in continuous improvement. So I do not have a concern with reviewing the policy. I would hope that it is ongoing in a co-creation. So this is many voices at the table, and mine included.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Trustee Rob Painter.
Yes, in light of the challenges leading up to this one, our inability to find the time to complete the initial review, I'd like to request that should this go forward and be approved, that superintendent would consider adding both a timing for the evaluation, the superintendent's evaluation itself, and a specific timing to be set aside for the review into any work planning that goes forward with the new board, so that we can get into a rhythm of doing this on an ongoing basis and setting aside specific time to get the work done.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. And are all the trustees clear on the amendment proposed? If there's any lack of clarity, please raise your hand so we know. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor, please signify. And that is unanimous. Thank you. So the motion is amended. I'll now call the question on the motion as amended. All those in favor, please signify. Opposed? And it carries with Trustee Rob Painter opposed. Okay, we will now go to the Operations Policy and Planning Committee. Draft minutes from our September 20th, 2022 meeting are for information. We have recommended motions here, starting with new policy, role of trustee. Recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve new policy, role of the trustee. It is recommended and on the floor for debate. Any discussion? Trustee Whitaker.
Chair, just before
Yes.
you move on to that, not that we will debate it tonight, but just maybe giving staff the heads up. When I reviewed those draft minutes, it says consensus for every decision, but that's not what happened. The chair just stopped voting after 5. So maybe just a heads up to change that for the next meeting.
Okay, okay, we'll go back to the motion. Any discussion on the role of trustee? It is on the floor for debate. Trustee Rob Painter.
Well, an observation, since I was not a part of this discussion or the development of it, I have to express a certain concern that a board in the last meeting prior to its end is developing direction for a new board to have to basically get their head around. I can understand this being left as a draft document for them to consider and make informed decisions on their own as a new board, but to have trustees who are not being bound by policy, pass a policy with the expectation of effectively binding a new group of trustees, I think is inappropriate.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight again, and I've highlighted this concern before. I won't be supporting the motion tonight to adopt this policy. I think that we have not benefited from having our stakeholders and rights holders around the table in order to feed into the development of our policies. And I think there is no urgency, around adopting this tonight. I would rather see us review it in light of everyone back around the table rather than rush it through. This board has operated for almost 4 years now without this particular policy in place. And I think it's a golden opportunity for the new board to discuss the role of a trustee and to take this work forward.
Any further discussion? Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned too about moving this forward. While I think that there is some good work there, we are receiving questions from the public that raised some, I think, very good points about this role of the trustee, whether or not the new board will look at those. But I do think that it's worth taking a look at that. Clearly, there are roles of the trustee that were not followed appropriately. And I think that there's point to be made that it should be in there, that the board is accountable for their collective decisions. The board is accountable to the electorate. These are all coming from Edith. And also some comment about WorkSafe in there. Perhaps that is something for the next round, for the next board to look at. But I do think that this board should be aware that this role of the trustees certainly does not reflect what we have learned over the last 8 months.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question on the motion to approve new policy role of trustee. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? And Jordan Waters appears to not be here. So Trustee Waters, are you here? Trustee Waters, are you here to vote on this motion? Yes, Trustee Duncan.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I'm just dealing with some child.
Yes, no, I thought so. I wasn't trying to rush you. Do you need a minute and we can postpone the vote if you need a minute? No, possibly. Trustees, before we go to this motion, perhaps we can take a break. I don't want to disallow the ability of a trustee to vote because of actions beyond their control. Trustee Waters, are you?
I am back.
Okay, and now Trustee Painter appears to be gone. So,
I
Trustee Painter.
apologize. Matthew's now got the kids, so I can focus.
Okay, Trustee Painter, are you still here with us? I am going to call the question back again, so I want to make sure we're all here.
Okay, I am. I thought I voted and had a moment.
I know. My apologies. I'm trying to make sure we all have the benefit of voting. So I'm going to call the question again now that we're all here, that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve new policy role of the trustee. All those in favor, please signify. And those opposed, please signify. And the motion carries with Trustee Rob Painter, Trustee Diane McNally, Trustee Nicole Duncan, and Trustee Ann Whitaker opposed. Trustee
Chair,
Whitaker.
can I make the suggestion that we as a board have actually been meeting since 6 o'clock and maybe it is time for a short break?
You beat me to it, Trustee Whitaker. I was just going to recommend that. So can we break for 10 minutes, 5 minutes? What do we think? 5? Okay, 5. Some people say 10. Let's break for 7. 7 minutes.
Call it 10. 5 goes very quickly.
Okay, we'll do 10, trustees. We'll do 10. We'll do 10. Thank you. All right, 10 minutes goes by fast, everybody. So let's start coming back to the table.
Chair,
Yes.
I just want to let you know that I've got a sick kid, so even though dad's here, mom's still sort of the preferred hair holder, if I can put it that way. So
Okay,
I'm just
sure.
going to do my very best to be fully present while also tending to the little one.
Of course, absolutely. So if you need space or time to step away and come back, let us know and we will support you however we need. All right, trustees, let's come back if we can. And we can move on to the next recommended motion. Just waiting for trustees Rob Painter and Angie Hensa.
Chair?
There we go. We are back. Yes, trustee Painter.
I will apologize in advance. I'm feeding myself tonight, which is always a dangerous thing. So it is not a mark of disrespect if you see me chewing on popcorn. I'm not spectating. It's just what was at hand.
That is fine, trustee Painter. I have cold pierogies beside me that I haven't had a chance to eat yet, so I'm a little bit jealous that you're actually eating while I'm sitting here chairing the meeting. So well done. Popcorn sounds great. Okay, so we'll go back to our recommended motion from September 20th, 2022 meeting. I revised minor capital 2023-24 annual 5-year capital plan. The recommended motion, whereas the Board of Education of School District 61 Greater Victoria approved its 2023-24 5-year capital plan in June 2022 and wishes to revise the minor capital projects in the approved plan. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria approve the revised minor capital projects in 23-24 annual 5-year capital plan as presented. That is the recommended motion and it is on the floor. Is there discussion? Trustee Rob Painter.
Quick question of clarification. Is this funding of the use it or lose it variety, or is it possible to hold it for a year or more?
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
This funding is an application to the ministry as part of the board's annual 5-year capital plan for 23-24. Originally in June, we had the board had passed a motion to approve its minor capital plan, and then over the summer, staff have revised the minor capital plan to take more advantage of a phased approach to some of the boiler replacement by installing heat pumps. And so this is an application for funding. It's not funding that we've been given to use or lose. It's an application.
Trustee Painter, a follow-up.
Thank you. And actually that's really helpful because just on the surface, when I saw boiler replacement there, I had my knee-jerk response was a concern about what we were doing in light of our commitments to climate change and reducing our footprint. And you've just answered it for me. So thank you very much. Would it be possible to get a new version of this report? I noticed, I think it's just one of those inadvertent things with spreadsheets that only a portion of the text is available just because of the size of the cells. Would it be possible to expand those cells in a new document so that we can get the complete text?
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Sorry, yes, it is.
Okay, Trustee Rob Painter, satisfied? Very good. Okay, thumbs up. That's a good sign. Trustee Nicole Duncan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take the opportunity to again thank staff for taking the initiative over the summer during, I know what is such a busy time, to revise the application to the ministry. I wasn't able to support the initial 5-year capital plan because it didn't take advantage of opportunities to electrify. We know that our primary source of our emissions is around our heating and cooling systems, or heating in our case. And so the opportunity to go back, revisit this, revise it, and come back with an electric heat pump source is exciting. And I thank you all very much.
Okay, any other discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify. Any opposed? Oh, I see that's all in favor. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. D3, 2021-22, financial year end. Audit Committee report, September 15th, 2022. We have several recommended motions here. Do we, or I guess I can ask the Secretary Treasurer, are we able to move these in one? People might want to pull them, but I just want to check and see if, oh, I'm seeing head shakes already, so that's fine. We will do these one at a time. Here I was trying to be efficient. Shame on me. That the Board of Education of School District 61 Greater Victoria approve the appropriation of $8,218,621 of the operating surplus as follows. 1, internally restricted $6,717,367, and 2, unrestricted contingency at $1,501,254. That is the recommended motion. It is on the floor. Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Yeah, I wondered if it would be more helpful, and I'm sorry I didn't think of this during agenda publishing, but I wonder if it would be more helpful to jump to the approve the financial statements and the financial statement discussion and analysis report before the other 2 or 3.
So that's moving
okay
down.
If I went through
to
the FSD&A, I guess if we did the 4th one and then answered any questions about the 3rd one and then went up to the 1st one and down.
Oh, okay, sorry, you went through that a little quick. Can you remind me which numbers you want to do in what order? Sorry, I want to make sure
if they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we could do number 4 first in conjunction with number 3.
Okay.
Okay.
And then move to 1, 2, and 5.
Trustees, are we okay doing 4 and 3 together and then 1, 2, and 5? Okay, I got thumbs up. Thank you for walking us through that, Secretary Treasurer Morris. All right, so let's do 4 and 3. Can we move that together, trustees? I think we're okay with that. Yes. Okay, we'll move those and they're on the floor together. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor. Oh, hold on. I see Trustee Whitaker saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. So that means she wants me to slow down. So I will do that.
Let me get down to where, so this is approve the financial statement discussion and analysis report. Can you tell me exactly what page I'm looking at that's relating to? I see the whole financials on 103. Are you talking about approving all of this right now?
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
I'm talking about the financial statement discussion and analysis report accompanying the approval of the financial statements as one discussion.
Can you just tell me the page number that this discussion and analysis report is on?
I can use the bookmarks on the agenda.
I downloaded it, sorry.
I see, that's okay. Let's see. There are many bookmarks. The financial statements start on page 103 of the packet. And the FSD&A starts on page 146 of the packet.
Thank you. Holy scrolling.
Okay, Trustee Whitaker, we'll take time for you to get in place. Well, I've got Trustee Duncan who has her hand up. Trustee Whitaker, can I go to her and we can come back to you? Okay, Trustee Duncan, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So yeah, I just had a question. If we could maybe go to, my question relates to page 125 of the packet. And it is the last, sorry, it's 126 of the packet, 125 of the statements. Last paragraph on that page, it says that the city lands had a total market value of 2.38 million, and the school district lands had a total market value of 2.88 million. No gain or loss on disposal was recorded on the exchange. So I just want to clarify whether that calculation of total market value of the exchange also takes into account the amount that the school district paid plus GST for the sites at North Park.
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Yes, it does. So the acquisition price as negotiated is subject to GST.
You, Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah, just to follow up, I just wanted to clarify, because the way this is drafted, the way I'm reading it, it appears to suggest that there was an exchange and that no cash value was exchanged. So nobody exchanged money. It was simply an exchange of, like for like, so equivalent value. And so I guess I'm confused how then we factored in the $1 million+ that was spent on the North Park site by us.
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Right. So we know through negotiation that instead of a future project, we purchased a piece of land from BC Housing, North Park, and that we paid cash for that. We had to pay them something. So that was a cash transaction. And we know that we received $4.3 million in a license to construct. And we know that we received cash in that as well. And so when we acquire property of a value that we've paid for, it is subject to GST, and therefore we pay for it.
Trustee Duncan, follow up.
Yeah. So maybe I'm missing something, and I expect I am. So there's the value of the lease. There is, I believe, an exchange of land, and was that not for like for $1? So I guess what I'm trying to make sure is that it's clear in the financial statements what actual value has been exchanged, and the extent to which it's an exchange of like for like land, and the extent to which there's actually an exchange of cash to purchase land. So I'm wondering if, and again, bear with me if I'm missing something, wonder if there's another way you could explain it to me, because I still am not quite understanding the description in the financial statement of what has occurred.
So tell me the page that you're looking at in the financial statements.
So it's at
or
one,
the pack up, sorry.
At the pack up, it is 120. Let me just go back up. It's 125.
Okay.
And it's the very last paragraph on that page.
Right.
And so it speaks to that land exchange agreement, and it speaks to the exchange of land, and then it speaks to an assessment of gain or loss on disposal.
Right. And this is under, let me see which note this, so this is under net book value.
Yeah.
And so in this particular note, we're saying that the value added to the capital financial statement or the capital balance sheet is stated here. And then you had GST rolled in there as well. So there was cash exchanged. But the difference of the assessed value versus the appraised value was not taken into account as a gain or a loss on disposal.
Go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. And that's standard practice to not take account of the difference in valuation.
That was part of the negotiation.
So it's not that the approach taken is not the result of a ministerial directive or financial accounting standard or any, it was simply part of the negotiation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this item of Trustee Whitaker? I thought I saw your hand up, but then it went down. So You're on mute. You're on mute, Trustee Whitaker.
I thought you meant on that particular item. So yes, if we can zip to page 173 in the pack up, my question was around, whoa, hang on, is around,
Is this still on item 3 and item 4 and 3 together? Just making sure.
yeah.
I think it is. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Just checking myself. Yeah.
Okay, so this is about restricted funds. And as I scroll down, I guess where it says restricted for operations spanning multiple school years. I don't expect to know all the answers now, but I just note that there were, you know, several that were kind of up there. And I was curious, like over how many years these grants are going. Specifically, I look at the Indigenous Education Targeted Grant. Is that one more year or many years? I guess that's what sort of came up for me as well. Look at the Vic West Portable, like, so when do these grants come to an end?
Yeah, and so these are carry forwards, and so they add to part of the total reserve. And so school operating surplus, we would say is going to be ongoing over many years, infinitum, because schools will always have operating surpluses unless every school spent all their money. School special project carry forward, we try to get those taken into account within 1 or 2 to 3 years, depending on the workload at facilities. The link surplus is basically a school operating surplus, so we would expect them to have ongoing carry forwards.
So just to clarify, so people don't get excited, so this is about the timing of funding and when it can be spent, right? Is that
right?
correct?
This is what's left over at the end of the year and may or may not be spent in the upcoming year, or may span a couple of years. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
So I also noticed the Sundance startup costs were in the negative. So how do we recapture that piece?
So we will capture that in the 22-23 year, where we've put aside, I believe, local capital or operating costs for the addition of the second classroom in year 2. So we'll carry forward that negative balance into the 22-23 funding year. And it will simply reduce the funding in 22-23 for that startup, because some things were purchased in June for the new year.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Painter, you're next on deck, or not on deck, you're next.
That and clean up yet again. No, I apologize. My copy of the Vic High project definition report is on my laptop, and I haven't picked that up yet. But my recollection was that a 1,000 student capacity, the difference between tear down and seismic was $1 million. Can you remind me why the contribution from the district, which I understood was supposed to be 50% of the difference, is 2.6 million? I know we've had this discussion before, but I just simply do not remember.
Right.
Secretary Treasurer.
Yeah, just one sec. So the 2.6 million can be broken down into a 1 million contribution to the expansion of 200 seats from 800 to 1,000, as you said.
Yeah.
And then the other 1.6 million to make up the 2.6 is the contribution to unfunded enhancements resulting from the decision to upgrade and renovate the existing building and to not replace the building. And so these are things like building envelope systems, such as terracotta facade and other heritage elements of the school exterior, hazmat remediations, and renovation of mechanical and electrical systems.
And okay, I can send you an email for other questions at some point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on recommendation 4 and 3 under the audit committee report? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on these 2 recommended motions. All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? And the motion carries with trustee Rob Painter and trustee Di McNally abstaining. All right, we'll go back to motion 1, that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve the appropriation of $8,218,621 of the operating surplus as follows: internally restricted $6,717,367, and 2, unrestricted contingency $1,501,254. The motion is on the floor for discussion. Trustee Whitaker.
I'm just seconding or moving whatever we needed to do there.
No,
Thank
it's recommended, so it's on the floor. You're good to go. Any discussion on this motion? Trustee Rob Painter. You're on mute now, Rob. You were off mute before, now you're on. There you go.
Can't win for losing. No, I just wanted to clarify my position that I'm not in a position to make an informed decision about this, so I'll be abstaining from this one as well.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Painter, for that. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it would be helpful if, through the chair to the Secretary Treasurer, if you could just briefly contextualize the extent to which the approval or the appropriation in any way deviates from what we expected to be appropriating at this point in the year.
Right, I think if I could, let's see, I'm gonna take you back down to the FSD&A report that started on page 146.
It's 173. It's exactly what I questioned.
173.
That's
Yeah.
where your formula is, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, just going back and forth. I think there was somewhere else that I wanted to point something out. So if we go to page 161, Trustee Duncan. Are you okay there? Let me know.
Sorry, I'm muted now. Yeah, no, I'm just headed to 161. Yeah, go ahead. I can follow you as you
So
go.
there's a table there showing the actual 21-22 surplus of 8.2 million. And compared to the actual 2021, which was 13 million. So over the course of the year, we reduced our surplus or our carry forwards by $4.9 million. And if we compare on the right-hand side, the actual 21-22 at 8.2 million, compared to our estimate of roughly 1 million around budget time that we thought we would bring in. The variance is about $1.5 million or 1.15 million. And so we also know the board took some significant risk in balancing the budget by adding another 1.5 million to the surplus used to balance the budget. So you can see that $800,000 was a recommendation in some of the options, in all of the options, and the board went with about 2.3 million by adding another 1.5 million in what it anticipated to be a surplus that would come in at the end of the year. So that didn't completely materialize and is short by about 400,000. And so that's why you see your reserves go down to 1.172 on the second to last line, and the reserve for international at 328,000. So it came in a little bit as we were predicting, and we're out by about 1.1 million, and that's about out $1 million from the previous year too. But given the size of the budget of 260 or $280 million, 1.1 million is very close projection. And many thanks to Julie Lutner, our Director of Budgets and Financial Reporting, for her good work here. Again, we're starting to realize that we can depend on this, on these surplus projections. I think the trending is good that we are able to start depending on these. So it came in roughly within $1 million of what we thought. It didn't meet the board's risk threshold, and therefore, instead of making the cuts necessary to stay within the surplus to balance the budget, we did reduce the reserve. So we are again out of compliance with our policy. Does that help?
Thank you. Any follow-up questions? Okay, Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say it does help. I mean, that's the kind of conversation I think that's really helpful to have, and especially before we approve the motion, just so that we're all on the same page and we understand where we started, what assumptions we made, how that all panned out, and how we might want to consider that during our next budget cycle. So thank
Yeah,
you.
you bet.
Awesome. Any further discussion? Yes, Trustee Rob Painter. I note that Trustee Painter, you'll be speaking a second time on this motion. Is this a question or?
Really quick one, I hope.
All right.
Just want to understand the Cedar Hill Middle School seismic project. I just noted that it's listed here in under 6.3 on page 170. Has that been approved by the board?
The Cedar Hill Middle School project?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, now the budget has come in. I understand there were some significant revisions to the design and its composition. I was wondering if the board had approved that to go forward.
I'm not sure that the board does approve that to go forward. I think that we have a Cedar Hill report that comes to the board each month in camera, and we do have an engagement report coming from the June open house for the board in an open format, I think to the October ops meeting. So we'll be able to see what the feedback was there.
Okay, I seem to recall voting on Vic High, so I would be surprised there wasn't a vote on Cedar Hill.
Yeah.
Also,
I can take a look.
can I just as part of the catch up, could I get a copy of the project definition report for Cedar Hill? I understand that's an in-camera one, but I'll just throw it out here while I'm talking. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, not a problem. Noted by staff. Any further discussion on the motion in question? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify. Of those opposed and abstaining. The motion carries with Trustee Rob Painter and Trustee Diane McNally abstaining. We'll go to motion 2, that the Board of Education of School District 61 allocate the total net Caledonia land exchange and disposal proceeds from the local capital reserve for the purpose of 1, district contribution to Vic High School seismic capital project, $2,600,000 as set out by the Ministry of Education and Childcare, and 2, amenities for Vic High School seismic capital project, $557,564. And as a recommended motion, it is on the floor for discussion and debate. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, I just wanted to seek some clarity, Chair. I recall that we already passed this or a motion very similarly worded, just to confirm that we were going to be contributing that amount and that the amenities, it would go towards the amenities at Vic High, the balance would. So I'm just wondering if I've mistaken or if I'm not, why we're voting on this again.
Yeah, so I
Thank
think
you, Secretary Treasurer.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think okay. The board definitely voted on what it would do with the proceeds of Caledonia. Our new guidance from the ministry in terms of our companion guide that was brought out and was part of the surplus policy that the board passed last June is that whenever money goes into local capital, you must allocate it out of local capital by board motion. And so this is actually cash that went into the local capital fund, and now the board must direct or codify what it will do with those monies, even though you have lots of documentation saying what you would have done with it in the engagement reports and in all of your public consultation, etc. But this is a formal requirement when you're allocating local capital.
Okay, Trustee Whitaker. Oh,
So I
sorry,
just want-
Trustee Duncan. Sorry. Trustee Duncan, did you have a follow-up? Okay, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's getting
ahead.
late. We're all doing the best we can. So yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify. So we're really just closing the loop from a financial perspective.
From a compliance perspective.
Excellent. Okay, that helps me. Thank you.
Perfect. Trustee Whitaker.
That was completely my question, that this is just more housekeeping. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions, trustees? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on this motion. All those in favor, please signify. Opposed? Abstentions? And the motion carries with Trustee Rob Painter abstaining. And we'll go now to the final motion in this block, that the Board of Education of School District 61 Greater Victoria approve the schedules as required by the Financial Information Act for the period July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, and further that the approved schedules be posted to the district website. This is a recommended motion and it is on the floor for debate and discussion. Any trustees want to debate or discuss this motion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And the motion carries with Trustee Rob Painter abstaining. Section E, District Leadership Team Reports, Superintendent's Report, Monthly Report. Superintendent Whitten, over to you for your report, please.
Thank you, Chair Painter. I would like to bring forward 5 areas just to highlight as we look at this report. One being the Summer Literacy Pro D series that occurred. It was a 2-day professional development at the end of August into September. Also the Welcome and Learning Center that we have operating in the Tommy building, fantastic space for immigrants and refugees coming in. We've had many students coming in over the past several days. Also the teacher librarian professional development that I attended and many district team members attended. And the Métis Education Agreement, again, as Trustee Duncan had mentioned, a fantastic event to be at. And lastly, we did have local education agreement training. We had the day at Esquimalt, and we met with Esquimalt Nation staff as well as Songhees Nation staff, with school principals, vice principals, district staff, and senior leadership team. So a day meeting and reviewing the LEA and our obligations and requirements and accountabilities, and really getting deeper with the 2 local education agreements and understanding where we are at and our relationship with Esquimalt and Songhees Nations. And just to close the report, I do like to finish with gratitude. The Indigenous Education Department has provided a lot of support and resources to acknowledge the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation and Orange Shirt Day, as well as again bring up the Métis Education Agreement. Many thanks to facility staff for their work on various summer projects. They were very busy throughout the summer and want to acknowledge their great work. And also to parents, staff, caregivers, rights holders, and partners for a smooth September, very smooth month of September. So that comes with appreciation and gratitude to those involved in helping it be smooth. So that is my report for the month of September.
There we go. Thank you, Superintendent Whitten. And we do have a motion that the Board of Education receive the superintendent's report as presented. It is recommended motion, so it's on the floor for discussion and debate. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, and that carries.
Could I just get a mover and seconder on that, please?
Yeah, moved by Trustee Whitaker, seconded by Trustee Duncan. My apologies. I'm thinking back from the previous motions. This one did need a mover and a seconder. Thank you. We'll go to revised 2022-23 board and standing committee meeting dates. Superintendent Whitten, anything here you want to let us know before we discuss?
Nope, just a mention of the Tuesday, November 1st inaugural board meeting.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Trustee Waters, seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, please signify. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. We'll go to special program approval, Director Vare, Human Resource Services. Superintendent Whitten.
Thank you, Chair Painter. We just wanted to share briefly tonight with you approval of a special program we received over the course of the summer. The letter from the Office of the Human Rights Commissioner is included with the tonight's agenda. As trustees will be aware, the Human Rights Code provides that individuals can't discriminate with respect to employment or any term or condition of employment, but and that's a general prohibition in Section 13 of the code. However, in Section 42 of the code, there is a provision that allows for an individual or an organization to apply for approval of what is described as an employment equity program that has as its objective the, to use the code's term, the amelioration of conditions of disadvantaged individuals or groups. And it lists the conditions there. And on an application by a person or organization, the commissioner can approve the program. And once that's approved, then actions taken under that program, that special program, are not a contravention of the code. So normally if you took action that favored a certain group under the code, that would be a contravention of the code, but the approval of a special program allows the organization to implement a program that supports those individuals. So we applied for a special program approval that basically consisted of three parts: preferential hiring of self-identified Indigenous persons and applicants for positions created through the funding that's targeted towards that group. Secondly, preferential hiring of self-identified Indigenous applicants for continuing contract teaching positions until the proportion of self-identified Indigenous teachers reaches that of the self-identified Indigenous students, so the same percentage of students and teachers, and then the same preferential hiring for applicants that are self-identified as racialized until those ratios are the same. As noted at the bottom of page 1 of the letter, the commission, we advise the tribunal and the commissioner that schools aren't always a culturally safe place for Indigenous and racialized students and their families. And as a result, students don't see themselves reflected in the adults around them, and nor do they see themselves reflected in the curriculum, and that Indigenous students continue to experience the disadvantage due to the legacy of colonization. And we also explain that when both Indigenous and racialized students have teachers who are reflective of their identity, they're more likely to be engaged in school and to develop a positive attitude towards their education, and that teachers who reflect the social location of students are able to serve as role models. And I'll turn it over to Principal Shrivastava to give a bit more information about the background of the application.
Thank you very much. So this is really good news. This is exciting for us to move forward in this direction. The Indigenous agreement that we have and have had, this is not new. Actually, this goes way back to, I believe, 2006, when we actually had our very first Indigenous equity agreement through the Human Rights Tribunal. At that time, though, we focused more on hiring Indigenous educators for the Indigenous Education Department. So it was very exciting to move forward from 2006 to about 2012, when the GVT and the district both realized that it would be beneficial to have more Indigenous teachers in continuing positions in the classroom. So we were able to really expand on this. And afterwards, in the years after 2012, prior to summer posting rounds, the district and the GVTA would meet, and we would agree upon a number of continuing positions to be filled by Indigenous teachers who have not yet secured full-time employment. So we've been doing that for several years. And the exciting piece about this is that now it's going to be expanded to teachers who self-identify as being racialized. So with our Indigenous teachers, just to give you a bit of an idea of percentages, currently we have about 5.5% of our teachers identifying as Indigenous. And the comparator that we use is students that self-identify, and we have about 7.6% of students self-identifying in the district. So in order for one to mirror the other, we have a little bit of work to do. And I'm really excited to work with our rights holders, the nations, the houses, and to really have meaningful and that reciprocal opportunity to be involved in our recruitment and our hiring process, and to have those fulsome discussions as we move forward. So we're committed there, and again, committed to fulfilling the local education agreement as well. Now we have our third one, and I know that human resources and hiring is part of that. So again, very exciting work. And in our, like I said, with racialized, in our most recent bargaining session with the GVTA, we've renewed our commitment, and we've expanded our focus to prioritizing staff who identify as racialized. And the goal, again, here the goal would be to have teachers who self-identify as racialized mirror the 2021 census data that we have for Victoria. So again, our metric would be a little bit different in this case. So like I said, special programs have been in place for both Indigenous and racialized now since July, and we're going to move forward with that, and we'll have it to 2027. And in that time, we will be reporting to the Office of the Human Rights Commissioner, and we'll be doing a midterm report. And I'm hoping to bring back more reporting here so that you know that where we're at as well as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, District Principal Scherster-Biedoff and Director Ver for that excellent report. I know how important this work is, actualizing not only local education agreements with the 4 houses, but bringing in this important piece that I know you're working hard for. We're all working hard on. So thank you. Any comments or questions from trustees and stakeholders? You are free to ask as well. Oh, I see we've got Tracy Humphreys with her hand up. Yes, Tracy, please let me open up the floor to you. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm really glad to be here. Nice to see you all, and funny being sitting in this chair. But I'll try to be brief. I don't know what I'm doing yet, so please excuse me if I get things wrong here. But I just have some curious questions, and I'm sure that these are part of your work, and you just didn't get into that detail. But so I'm curious to know what steps you've taken in the district to make it a welcoming environment for Indigenous and other racialized educators. And then my other question was, what about education assistance? Because I think, that equally seeing yourself reflected in those people who are supporting you is also really important. So that's all. I think it's really great work, and it is really exciting. And I really want to emphasize that. I'm just curious about the details.
Thanks, Tracy. And I failed to acknowledge that you were here with VCPAC initially. So my apologies for missing that. But I looked down at your name tag, and I'm so used to seeing people put their titles and things. So my apologies for looking over that. Thank you for joining us. So I'll go back to Director Ver or District Principal Scherster-Biedoff to respond.
Yeah, that's not an easy question. It's very to give a fulsome answer to that. I think what's great right now is with removing barriers and just talking about it to begin with. I think that's very important. And by having these fulsome discussions and by implementing programs like this, we are removing barriers, and we are decolonizing the system as we move forward. But Tracy, we have a long way to go. So making it a welcome district, again, it's what we do in our schools. It's how we welcome our staff in, and again, it's the welcoming that we have from the principals in schools. And I know that we're working with principals all the time to look at our policies and how we work with staff and how we work with students, and again, how we work with parents as well. When Director Ver started, he stated that schools don't always feel culturally safe for students or for families and for staff. So I think that's something that, as we hire more people, as we diversify our staff, I'm hoping that we'll definitely move in that direction. And again, not just for teachers, but also educational assistants as well. Extremely important. And the great news is that all of our partners are on board. When I reached out to our union presidents and our association presidents, they were definitely on board to allow me to send out an email to survey all of our employees to find out who considers themselves racialized and who self-identifies as Indigenous. So again, that's just giving us a bit of a base before moving forward. And Tracy, we really are at the base right now, foundation.
I appreciate that response. And of course, I mean, if we look around this Zoom, we can see that things need to change. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, trustees, over to you. I see Trustee Rob Painter, Trustee Ann Whitaker, Trustee Nicole Duncan. So we'll go to Trustee Rob Painter first.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to emphasize right off the bat that this is absolutely a good news story. So, you know, I'm not trying to pick the fly poop out of the pepper sort of thing, but one of the ideas that came to mind, and if it's just my interpretation of what I'm reading, I hope you can clarify it for me. But one thought I had is that when my kids were at Central, there were a number of people we would say would self-identify as Indigenous. And the learning that those teachers were able to impart, not simply to Indigenous students, but to every student, and to demonstrate in a really positive manner how worthy these people were, these Indigenous teachers were, of the same respect as non-Indigenous teachers. So that was such a valuable thing, and I think it's so important for us as a society moving forward, whether it's racialized, whether it's LGBTQ, anything else, that we're ensuring that as much as possible that all of our kids are exposed to all of the different segments of population that they might encounter, because it's often seemed to me, you know, past experience in the military overseas and things like that, that the biggest source of fear is the unknown. And the more we get used to the idea of everyone having their own inherent self-worth, regardless of their cultural origins or what they look like or anything else, the better. So I'm just wondering, as we move forward, and I'm seeing, you know, alignment of Indigenous population and staff and Indigenous population and students, it concerns me a little bit that perhaps we're going down it's not a quota, but if I'm not conveying that right, I'll clarify. And just I'd want to know that this is a great news story. I'm looking forward to seeing the hiring of more self-identified Indigenous and racialized applicants, but I hope we don't just stop when we hit a number.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. To Director Veer.
Yeah, if I could just respond to Trustee Painter. I certainly would support your comments, and it's certainly part of our objective is just to go beyond the numbers. And interesting enough, although the numbers are one indicator that the commission is looking for in a mid-program and 2.5-year report, and then at the end of it, one of the things they've also asked for, which I'm quite heartened about, is they've asked us to give us information on any other impacts of the program, such as the qualitative descriptions of the benefits to students, teachers, and the school district and the broader community achieved through the special program. So for me, what that means is we can look to the benefits that go beyond just ensuring that Indigenous and racialized students see themselves reflected in the teaching staff, but we can look at the impact that this program is having on other students and other staff within the organization. And I think that's a good indicator and something that we need to continue to look at for the reasons you indicated.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Trustee Whitaker, and then Trustee Duncan is on deck.
Thank you. And I just want to thank everyone who has drafted, written, and worked together to make this come to fruition. I'm very excited about it. It's definitely the step that we need to do to move forward and to change our culture. But one area that I've been doing a bunch of learning about is actually the barriers that exist to, especially specifically our Indigenous population, on even just applying and through the whole hiring process, that there's a lot of systemic racism in the process that doesn't account for the different cultures, the humility that exists and is taught from very early age of our Indigenous population makes it very difficult for them to write a resume that brags about themselves, because culturally that's not been an appropriate approach. And of course, all sorts of other barriers that do exist for this population to apply for jobs. And I guess I'm just wondering, are we going to, how are we going to attract these individuals, and what are we going to do to ensure that our hiring practices remove a lot of those, potential barriers that do exist for people to apply to the positions?
Director Ver or District Principal Schuster-Wiedoff, not sure who wants to take that one.
How about if we have done a few things already. One of the biggest issues that I've heard about is transparency. How do you do things? How do you apply? What's expected? What kind of interview questions will I be asked? So what we've tried to do is we've tried to be very transparent online in indicating exactly what the process looks like. And again, not just for our Indigenous candidates or racialized, but for everybody. Oftentimes it's that lack of transparency and lack of what happens next that tends to be a barrier in itself, and that barrier of the unknown. So that's definitely a piece of it. So.
Thank you. I'll just mention that the one other piece that has been mentioned a lot, that if a candidate doesn't have 100% of the qualifications, like we tend to write a job description for the unicorn employee, right? But unfortunately, what tends to happen, if you don't have all those skills, you don't apply. So maybe just to encourage looking at them. And if we're not getting the applications that we're looking for, what are we doing to make the application not as scary, or something that can be applied for, right? Because we know that not everybody has 100% of those skills, and often a white man will still apply for it. However, I don't think that's true across the board. So just whatever we can do to look at what results we're getting and how we can ensure that more people are applying. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Duncan.
I'll keep it brief, folks. I think my colleagues have made all the relevant comments, but I just really wanted to echo how exciting this is. It is a first step. It's a really big, important first step. It's exciting that it's in consultation with the Human Rights Commission. And I trust there's going to be a lot of learning that comes out of this that can be applied to some of the other employee groups where we want to start to look at making some significant changes. And so I look forward to what's to come and to the reporting about how things are going. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, trustees and President Humphreys, for the conversation. And of course, District Principal Schuster-Wiedoff and Director Ver, thank you very much as well for bringing this to us tonight. It's a fantastic update, and we're all very excited about it. So thank you. We'll go next to the framework for enhancing student learning. And we have a motion recommended that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve the framework for enhancing student learning. Does this need to be moved and seconded? Okay, it does. So can I have a mover, please? Moved by Trustee Fair, seconded by Trustee McNally. Any discussion on the motion, please? Trustee Rob Painter, and then Trustee Duncan.
Sorry, just trying to keep my 100% here. Quick question, is there a timeline for when this has to be submitted?
Not sure who wants to take that one. Superintendent Winton.
Yes, there is. It's end of September, September 30th, 29th, September 29th.
So we've got a few days, right?
Any other oh, yes, sorry. Trustee Nicole Duncan, yes.
Yeah, just briefly, I just wanted to echo some of the comments I made at standing committee, because I think it's important for us to kind of think about, given that this is only the second vessel that we've submitted to the ministry, and it's very much an area where it's a work in progress, and we're getting used to sort of a different way of doing business using this framework. And so I'm just really keen to see how we move forward in terms of implementation. So I'm keen to see how the outcome of our strategies being implemented over the next 6 months to a year are reported back through a committee into the board, how we reflect any kind of reassessment or realignments that we make as we review, how well strategies are working. I think that we know that because this is new, that there is going to be a need to reassess and to really measure the success of some of the strategies that we are employing through our commitments outlined in the vessel. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that good work. And I wish the staff that are directly involved in implementing this the best of luck. And I hope as a board that we can support this work and look at come budget time, how we might look to align resources to support the work. So yeah, thank you. This is exciting times, and I look forward to how this rolls out.
Very much. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question on this motion regarding vessel. All those in favor, please signify. Any opposed? Abstentions? And that carries with Trustee Rob Painter abstaining. Trustee questions for Superintendent Deb Whitten. Trustee Rob Painter, then Trustee Nicole Duncan.
Chair, I have a couple, so I defer to you on whether I ask one and go to the back of the line, or
let's take it bit by bit, Trustee Painter. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I ended up having a casual conversation with a custodian over the weekend, and as a consequence, he brought to mind a couple of things, and so I was just wondering if it's possible to get any kind of input on whether or not the reduction in custodial staffing has had any kind of impact on the district's ability to meet its responsibilities as clarified in the provincial communicable disease guidelines for K-12 school settings. I realize that just came out in August, but wondering if where we stand on that.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. I'll refer that to Superintendent Whitten, or perhaps to Director Vistenson Harwood, if she's available. But if not, I can put to Superintendent Whitten for sure.
Yeah, I can start anyways. We certainly have spent time looking at the communicable disease plan and looked at it from last year into this year. We believe that what we are doing currently does meet that requirement. And we are working with facility staff, and there was a working group last year to look at these areas and to assess as we have moved forward. There's been some things that we have discovered that we learned and we've made modifications to as we've entered in and throughout September. So there are areas that we've kind of become aware of, but those would not include concerns around the communicable disease follow through or support.
Okay, Chair, if I could just follow up.
Go ahead, carry on.
One of the points that was raised, and I just wanted to bring this one, is cleaning and disinfection of frequently touched surfaces, and it was like at least once in a 24-hour period. And the sense I got in the conversation was that this was becoming increasingly difficult. So perhaps you could let me know in the future about how that one is covered. And then the other one was, given that we don't have custodians in all our schools all the time during the day, are we providing WIMIS and other training to non-custodial staff to ensure that if they have to use cleaning products or anything like that to deal with the kind of things that happen during the day, that they are properly trained and supported so that we're providing a safe working environment for them as well?
Superintendent Whitten.
So I think it might be in the best interest of the board to have a more fulsome report come back so that these questions can be answered and that we can give it its due respect in making sure that we're getting thorough answers from facilities and where we're at with that.
Okay, so maybe we can park any
That would be
facilities
ideal.
questions
Thank
for a
you.
future report then, Trustee Painter, is that okay? And perhaps Trustee Painter, if you could, any of those questions, forward them to trustees and senior staff so we can have the benefit of your clarification, and then that can be considered for a future meeting.
Absolutely. Apologize. I only managed to get an email working this afternoon. So
No fault late. That's totally fine. Any other follow-up though, Rob?
not on that point. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Duncan, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. The first question was around an issue that was it came up at the beginning of the last school year, and it was around what we came to know as a pilot program, whereby some schools were testing shortening recess and lunch hour breaks. And I'm just wondering if we can get an update on whether that practice or that test or pilot or whatever it was has continued, if there's plans to continue it into the next school year, and sort of where we are with that.
Superintendent Whitten.
Yeah, that for last year, the learning through lunch process occurred in some schools. This year it is not. So there are no schools in the district for elementary or middle that are utilizing learning through lunch.
Yep, follow up.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Chair. So can I assume that the pilot didn't demonstrate benefit to the approach, and so we're kind of abandoned it, or?
I think there's probably more to that than an answer easily given this evening. I think there were benefits in some respects, and others would say there wasn't. So I think, again, that would require a deeper conversation around that. And again, I wouldn't want to do it disservice by answering it quickly as to whether there were or there's differing opinions.
Yeah, fair enough. I appreciate that. I think it's good enough at this point to know that we're not continuing the practice, but thank you. And if I may, Chair, I just have one more question.
Yep, go ahead, continue.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to, through the chair to the superintendent, just see if we can highlight a little bit. I know I've been getting a lot of questions around the Student and Family Affordability Fund. I wonder if we can get just a brief update about where we are with that in terms of our process and our thinking about how to allocate those funds. I think folks would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Superintendent.
I can start with a summary, and then I invite Secretary Kim Morris to provide any other feedback, as we have done a fair bit with meetings with principals and vice principals who have then met or should be meeting with school-based team, which would include counselors, YFCs, learning support teachers, and classroom teachers if they're in that meeting. The principals or vice principals have also met with their school PAC. The information regarding the fund was shared with the 4 houses as well, and we answered questions that they may have had. And the information was also shared with VC PAC through the president, Tracy Humphreys. So we also created a Google form for principals and vice principals to provide feedback in, and thought exchange. So I think that's a summary of what's occurred. And again, if Secretary Treasurer has anything to add.
Yes, I think I think you've covered up all the ways we've reached out, Superintendent Whitten. I would just say that we've had some feedback from a couple of stakeholders saying that they should be able to present to us kind of that first week of October. And of course, this is a standing item on senior leadership teams meeting schedule each week. So we'll be gathering up the data and the information that people have pushed out and and brought back. So we'll be reviewing that each week to come up with a thoughtful plan about how to support students and their families.
Any further follow-up?
No, that's it. I just want to say thank you. That's great. Look forward to hearing that.
Very good. Okay, sorry, Trustee Rob Painter. I saw your hand up, I think, unless you were stretching.
No, just going back to question 2. I think a week or 2 ago, I was actually kind of surprised to see on a social media exchange where it was mentioned that the Mount Doug Challenge program charged a user fee for students participating in the program. And I was wondering if I could get some clarification on that.
Okay, Superintendent Whitten.
I would need to look into that unless one of our associate or our deputy is aware of that, but that is not information that I have in front of me here.
Either Deputy Caldwell or Associate Arts.
Through the chair, that's not information I have at this time as well.
Okay, thank you. That's really reassuring, because the first thing that came to mind was the work that former trustee John Young did to address the issue of fees in courses going to graduation. So yeah, if it would be possible to get a clarification on that, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Painter. Any further questions for the superintendent?
Not a question, but request for down the road. Should I be in a position to request things down the road? I thought it was really interesting seeing the community link funding breakdown in the letter to George J. And at a future time, should I be in a position to make such a request, I would really be interested in understanding better how our targeted, our special program, the special purpose funds allocations are made, especially where there's formulas or other things that come into mind. I think it would help understand from a budgetary perspective. Thank you.
Possible note for future budget discussions, Trustee Painter. Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is part of maybe a next iteration of our budget, and also part of our understanding of our facilities. So under long range facilities plan, I see a lot of data coming forward under that as well as budget. So I like the direction.
Very good. Thank you. And thanks for the question. Staff have that to carry forward. Moving to Secretary Treasurer's report, monthly report. Secretary Treasurer Morris, over to you. You're on mute, Secretary Treasurer Morris.
I'm on mute. I'm not on mute. I'm always in the opposite. Okay, so my report is attached for information if anybody has any questions. Just wanted to highlight the great turnout for Pride, and to thank our carpenter, I think Andrew Young, for leading us down the parade path. It was a great day, and so many students out and staff. So great coming together in COVID.
Wonderful. Yes, that was a fantastic march. It was great to be there with you and everyone else. That was great. Okay. Recommended motion that the Board of Education of School District 61 receive the Secretary Treasurer's report as presented. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Waters. Any discussion on that motion, please? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor on receiving the Secretary Treasurer's report, please signify. Any opposed? None opposed, and that carries. Budget development process. Secretary Treasurer Morris, back to you.
Thank you. In keeping with our, I think, fairly successful 22-23 budget process approved by the board, I attach a proposed 23-24 budget process in hopes that the new board can hit the ground running in November as soon as they're inaugurated. I think we have a budget meeting scheduled even before the first board meeting. So just here for the board's consideration and approval if they feel like doing so tonight.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. Before we, well, we do have the motion here, but I want to allow any questions from stakeholders if there's anyone who has thoughts or questions on this before we bring the board into it. Seeing none, then can I have a mover, please, for the motion to approve the 2023-24 budget development process? Moved by Trustee Waters, seconded by Trustee McNally. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. Oh, sorry, Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Sorry, I would agree with the Secretary Treasurer. I mean, it's nice to get off the ground running, and I will support this for that, but I do think that this needs to come back to the next board. It's their budget process, our budget process. But in order to keep us started and moving, I think that I will support this, but I do want to bring this back to the next board, give them the opportunity to put their feedback onto it as to how they think that it should operate. It's not my place right now to determine what the next board's going to do. But to at least have something in place, I think it's fair to at least approve the first half of this or the first bit of it. But I would expect that a new board will come together and bring their concerns forward and how they want to do discussions and dialogue as well.
Thanks, Trustee Whitaker. Appreciate that. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo those sentiments from Trustee Whitaker and just add that I think it also, in bringing it back, it would give it an opportunity for rights holders and stakeholders who probably, I'm going to guess, have not had time to go through this almost 300-page backup in coming here tonight to participate, an opportunity to reflect on the proposed process and provide feedback as well.
So can I make an amendment to this motion then, just to make sure that that is what we do? That the Board of Education of School District 61 approve the budget process as presented and will review with new board. Along those lines. I mean, that's what I want to see in here. I don't want the new board that might not know what they're doing to know that they can bring this back. So how do we get that to come back?
Maybe let's before we got a seconder. I hear you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. Do you have any direction for us on that, given the budget development process laid out, the timeline, maybe to help? I hear what trustees are saying, and I want to move in a direction that I think will be efficient for the new board. So appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at the budget process and the first meeting of the Budget Advisory Committee, that is a big piece of the orientation. We might have new committee members, VCPAC or GVTA or QP or rights holders might have different people that they're sending. So always at the beginning, it is a bit of an orientation. So I don't know if that gives you any comfort if you look at the sort of agenda for the first meeting or so. And we know that every year since I've been here, the budget process has been updated and reapproved by the board. So whether it's changing a date here and there or revamping the process, we haven't done that necessarily, but we've definitely brought it back and forth to the board. So you can make the amendment today, but I would say that the committee is going to review it and decide if it meets the needs, and the board can also review the Budget Advisory Committee's minutes as always.
Trustee Whitaker, does that firm up your confidence in the current motion, or do you want to continue with your amendment?
No, I still think I want it to come forward. Like, I appreciate what the Secretary Treasurer is saying, that yes, all these first meetings are really important that we have them. But at the same time, I want to respect that the new board is going to want to put its own touch on the budget process, and they may want to change how we do some things, and not saying that the meeting dates are necessarily going to change, because that's kind of important to block those in our calendar. So I want to respect that. But as far as, I mean, it's here that we're doing talking tables. Is that what the next board wants to do? Do they want to do talking tables, or do they have another idea? I guess that's what I'm saying. So I guess we can approve the timeline. Maybe that's the better amendment, is to approve the timeline, but not the complete process at this time.
So currently on the floor, we have approved the 2023-24 budget development process as presented. That's the current motion we're discussing.
Okay, so how about let's amend it to remove the word process and say timeline.
Okay,
And then that leaves the process itself to be finalized, but we're still going to meet these timelines.
But and you realize with respect, that means we wouldn't be approving the process tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Before we see if there's a seconder, I'll go to Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Yeah, I just, I appreciate the thought around the new board. I just worry about not approving the process. We do have to book venues in advance for some of those events. And so just caution the board on waiting too long and those venues or those opportunities being postponed.
Okay. Thank you. There is a motion on the floor. I'm going to test and see if we have a seconder for it to strike process and replace with timeline. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Rob Painter. So Trustee Whitaker has motivated. I'm going to go to Trustee Rob Painter to see if he has any further motivation, and then I'll seek other speakers.
No, I'm entirely in agreement with Trustee Whitaker on this one, and I do take the Secretary Treasurer's comments about booking spaces, etc. I do think if we have the dates set up, that we can actually start to move forward on doing some preliminary planning around space requirements and reservations as necessary. But I would have significant concerns about what could be seen as fettering a future board by making firm decisions about how things are going to unfold. I believe we've got a fairly comprehensive proposal here, but it's something that the next board that is going to own that budget has to feel comfortable with and has to be able to make the decision for themselves. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Trustee Leonard, Trustee Hensa, and then Trustee McNally. So Trustee Leonard, go ahead.
I appreciate the sentiments that have been expressed, but I would anticipate that the trustees who are running, who are still going to stand for office in October, will get elected. But in the off chance that we have 9 new trustees around the board, I believe they need some kind of a format or some kind of a template, at least to start with. And this is what this is for a new board, whether or not some of the incumbents come back or not, or have the opportunity to be on the board again, which again, I said, I think they'll all get elected. But if you had a new board, I would feel badly if they didn't have some place to start. They can change anything they want at a future meeting. They can decide they don't want talking tables. They can add things. But if they don't have a template and they're brand new in December, January, February, that's when all the stuff really starts ganging up on you and all the orientations and things like that. So I don't feel comfortable not giving a new board a template with which to start. So I would be supporting the motion.
Thank you. I'm going to put myself on the list after Trustee McNally. Trustee Hensa, then Trustee McNally, and then I will speak.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really quite surprised by the
Trustee Hensa,
amount of talk today and in the last months about not wanting to decide things for the new board.
Oh, Trustee Hensa, I think we're having some technical glitches on your side. Really want to hear what you're saying, but okay. I think we've got you back.
Hang on, losing my internet here. I'll move.
That's okay. We'll wait for you. I don't know if you can hear this message. We will wait for you.
Yeah, is that better?
We'll see. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just surprised by the amount of wanting to leave things for the new board. Just remembering back to my first 6 months and first year, if everybody had been coming to me and saying, hey, there's this policy, we've been waiting for you to check it out. Hey, here's this budget thing, we're waiting for you. It was already overwhelming enough. Our work doesn't stop because there's an election coming up. I think it's our duty to get this rolling, and the new board can make changes in this budget process or the next 3 that they're going to be involved in. So I Yeah, that's all I have. Hope everybody heard that.
We did, loud and clear. Thanks, Trustee Hensa. Trustee McNally.
Thank you. I'm just echoing basically what Trustee Hensa said. I mean, it's a long time ago now when I came on board, but as anybody who's been here for a while knows, the budget baffled me for years and probably continues to baffle me. And the more engagement from the public that we can set up, the better. And I think this is a really good place to start. As others have said, if the incoming board doesn't want to do it that way, they can make changes. But if I were coming in new, I tell you, I'd be very grateful to have this template and not have to think through it myself if I, really were trying to catch up with so much right away. So I'm in favor of going forward with what's set out here.
Thank you. I'm going to echo the sage wisdom from Trustee McNally and the words of Trustee Hensa as well, and as well Trustee Leonard. I mean, I really appreciate what other trustees are saying around trying to set out a space to allow the new board to set goalposts. They'll have the opportunity to do that when this comes forward, regardless of what happens. But just as Trustee Hensa said, when I came here 4 years ago, it was a lot to take in. I mean, the phrase "drinking from a fire hose" is used a lot, but that is what it's like coming in to trustee work and to learn. It's a lot, and I would have been grateful if the previous board had set out goalposts for me and had set staff on a path to make plans so that I could hit the ground running. Anything that can be done to help the new board move forward in a good collaborative, united way, I think is appropriate. So I'll be supporting moving forward with the current process as laid out, which means I won't be supporting the amendment. Trustee Duncan, and then I think we have heard from everyone except Trustee Waters and Trustee Ferris. So go ahead.
Yeah, I wondered if it might be helpful just to consider through the chair to Secretary Treasurer, when in the timeline would be an appropriate time for the new board to feed in or make some changes to what's being proposed here tonight.
I think that's really up to the new board and how comfortable they feel with the orientation they're receiving and how much they have of an understanding of budget. And I think how many returning committee members we have. So I really see that first budget advisory committee as informing the process going forward. But it really is up to the new board if they want to amend or change whatever you're moving tonight.
And so just to follow up, if I may, Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
And so the new board would have an opportunity to do that at the first board meeting following that initial committee meeting.
Yeah, the budget advisory committee makes recommendations to the board. And so if we recall our terms of reference going back and forth quite a bit last year as a committee, I think it took us 3 meetings to finalize that as the board. And so there are plenty of, there's lots of information that goes between the committee and the board can send that information back to committee as well. So to me, it's quite flexible. And I think we had a pretty informal way of doing business at the advisory committee last year. And that's, I think, was part of its success, was that informality and that flexibility. So I don't have any worries, but I'm not a trustee.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Trustee Waters or Trustee Ferris, any comments on this? Seeing none, I will call the question on the amendment, which is to strike process and, or my apologies, Trustee Whitaker, you can close if you'd like to on the timeline piece. My apologies, I should let you close.
Thank you. And I have heard what everyone says, and I do hope that we are going to move forward in a good way. I guess for me, the biggest challenge with this particular draft, does look an awful lot like the repeat of our previous year. And what was lacking in the previous process was any dialogue or discussion. It was a lot of receiving information. So thus, I really am hopeful that that will change. And if not, that the new board will address that.
Thank you. I'll call the question on the amendment to strike process and input timeline. So that is to change the current plan, strike process and insert timeline. On the amendment, all those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? And those abstaining. So the motion fails with Trustee Whitaker, Trustee Painter in support and the balance against. So the original motion as is, we'll call the question on the original motion to approve the 2023-24 budget development process as presented. All those in favor, please signify. Opposed? And it carries with Trustee Rob Painter opposed. We'll go to long-range facilities plan process and the recommended motion that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve the long-range facilities plan 24 to 30 process as presented. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Ferris. Any discussion? Trustee Duncan and then Trustee Painter.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm wondering, folks, if we want to just pause and consider extending the meeting past 10:30. We're just at 10:29.
Yep.
And we've got ways to go.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the note of time. Can I have a motion to extend to 11? Moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Duncan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of extending to 11, please signify. And those opposed to extending to 11, please signify. Abstained. Abstained, Trustee Hensa. So that, if I counted the votes, that was everyone in favor, Trustee Hensa abstaining. Please correct me if I was wrong, trustees, but I think that was what I got. Okay, so approve the long-range facilities plan 24 to 30 process is presented. Is there any discussion? It has been moved and seconded. It is on the floor. Yes, Secretary Treasurer Morris, please.
Yeah, if I could just take a minute to introduce it. I know it's late. This is basically a renewal or similar to when you go through a new strat plan. It's a way of reaffirming or to go out and seek new information and rebuild your long-range facilities plan, which is a few years old now. As I understand it from staff who were involved in the first one, there was no reach out to the public or stakeholders or anybody like that. I think this process is has a long runway of about 2 years and goes out into the public, I think 3 or 4 times, as well as to municipal partners. So it's a significant amount of work and trying to garner the opinions, input, expertise of our community so that we can create quality learning and working environments that are sustainable for the future. So I think this is a process the board could consider, and I hope you find value in what you see there.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer Morris, and certainly a lot of information, a lot of work to put all this together and a lot to consider for the current board and future board as well. So thank you and to staff for this. Okay, comments, questions, and debate. Trustee Duncan first, and then Trustee Painter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you through you to the Secretary Treasurer for considering how we might move this forward. I think it's always a good way to start discussions when we're, prioritizing how we reach out to stakeholders, rights holders, and the community in building our plan. When I looked at this initially, at first I thought it was a plan, and then I read a little more closely. I'm like, oh, okay, no, this is a proposal for a process. I like the fact that it's not rushed. I was, as I looked through, I found myself thinking about the role of the facilities plan ad hoc committee, who I know, their role is to monitor the existing plan and update and develop recommendations for the board about the long range facilities plan, monitor it and then report back on a biannual basis. I don't know if we've ever heard from that ad hoc committee in my time on the board, but I wonder whether or not there has been, maybe it didn't reach the board, but whether there has been some recommendations or some monitoring that has gone on through that ad hoc committee as per its terms of reference that we might consider tonight as we're thinking about the process proposal. And then my only other thought was around the merits of maybe considering this at ops, so that we can have a little more discussion before we approve it. I know we're not in a rush, and so it might be something for us to think about tonight.
So did I hear a motion to refer?
I think for now, I'd just like to hear from the Secretary Treasurer about what
Okay.
her thoughts are. And I might put a motion on the floor, but just not yet.
Keep us waiting. Okay, sure. Secretary Treasurer Morris, go ahead.
So the ad hoc committee met a couple of years ago twice, I think. But given COVID and the budget circumstances we were in, those sort of took precedence over the work. I feel like we're in a place now, or I think we're in a place now where things are a bit more calm and, shall we say, back to normal. And so now I think is the time to set down this path, and the board can take a look at the terms of reference of the committee and see what it thinks, and renew those if they like. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, the board may want to review those terms of reference to see if it suits their needs in terms of what this plan might entail. So.
Okay, any follow-up there, Trustee Duncan, or?
Yeah, just
Yep.
you know, I one of the things that I've certainly observed over my time as a trustee is that, you know, we're working on, you know, how we incorporate the ad hoc committees into our kind of governance structure. And I think that the long range facilities plan, in my view, is a really good example of where the ad hoc structure could add a great deal. And I think it's intended to add a great deal. And when it comes to monitoring and providing recommendations to the board about the long range facilities plan. So, you know, I appreciate that, you know, sometimes committees are more active than others, but I think it's something that's certainly been missing. And I think that the current long range facilities plan, there's a lot of really important pieces that, you know, we want to not lose in whatever process we embark on. And you know, the more I think about it, the more I guess I hope that we do refer this to ops, but so we can consider it more, but I look forward to hearing from my colleagues.
Okay, any discussion from trustees? I know Trustee Painter had some questions, and I've got Trustee Leonard, and I think I saw Trustee Whitaker as well. So I'll go to Trustee Painter, Trustee Leonard, then Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Painter, you're first.
Well, if there was a sense of urgency with the budget process, I think here it's pretty clear that there is ample opportunity for a new board to look at this same document and make its own determination about how it wants to move forward. I don't see us offering any additional guidance or support to a new board by passing it now. And I honestly think that referring this to a future ops committee, perhaps in November or December, and providing a time and place for stakeholders as well as the new trustees to actually discuss what their vision is for the long range facilities plan and how this is going to mesh with all of the different things that a board has to consider. For example, the annual capital planning process. How does the facilities plan fit in with that? That's just one off the top of my head. I would be concerned if this hasn't been discussed in a more fulsome way, if I use that term, that it's simply being put on the table as a whole, and the implication to the next board is, well, we've already got a plan for you. One of the things with approving a program, any kind of a schedule, and leaving it for someone else to implement, is that the implicit pressure on them is to conform to the standard that's already been set out. I think what we have here is an excellent proposal for moving the discussion forward, but to suggest that we're going to put it in front of a new board without even having a full consideration or discussion of it ourselves, I think is highly problematic. So if Trustee Duncan does not want to move the motion to refer, I'm happy to.
Okay, so we have a motion to refer to when, Trustee Painter? Trustee Duncan, I believe, if I misheard, wanted to have to the next ops meeting, but I may have misheard. But Trustee Painter, you're hoping for when?
My proposal would be November ops.
Okay, and Trustee Duncan, if I got that wrong, I'm sure you'll correct me.
No, I think it makes much more sense to do it in November. We got to let the new board get their feet under them.
Do we have Trustee Duncan then, or I can assume you'll second? Okay, fair comment. Okay, trustees, so we have a referral motion to refer the long-range facilities plan process to the November operations committee. I'm going to put myself on the speakers list, but I will allow other trustees to speak first. Trustee Leonard and then Trustee Whitaker on the referral motion.
Thank you. I am not in favor of referral. As Trustee Hens has said, the work of this board is not done yet. And we still have a month and a bit to have things go forward. I think this is an awesome template to move forward with facilities discussions. I don't remember in the last time we actually met with municipal partners and talked about our facilities. So I'm happy to see that on there and going out in the community and having input from stakeholders out in the community. I think this is very much a document that is workable and would move the board forward. They, as we've said before, they can delay, they can change, they can cancel a meeting, they can move the process as they want, but at least they would have a template to start with. So I'm in favor. I'm not in favor of referral.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Trustee Whitaker, you're next.
Thank you. And sorry, I have a bit of a cough. I don't know that it needs to be referred to November. I do think that the board should look at it more. Many of the comments that Trustee Leonard has said are the things that I have questions about, like just the timing of the board has it looks, maybe that's not right. Maybe they're just listed in a certain way, but it looks like the board has a meeting and then the committee has a meeting. And I'm not sure what the purpose is in that timing as to who's having a meeting when. And I'm also not sure I understand what the purpose of a meeting with the municipalities are. Great to chit chat with the municipalities, but I'm not sure why I'm talking about my facilities with the municipalities. I do understand that there is a strong urge to get a discount off of some of our gyms and our parking lots, but I don't think that that's the point to this. So yeah, I just don't know if it needs to be to November. I do agree with Trustee Leonard that we can move this a little bit farther ahead prior to that, but I do think it needs to be discussed more. Thanks.
And on the referral to November ops, are there any further speakers to the motion? Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, I just hearing what my colleagues are saying, and I'm not too concerned about when it comes to ops, as long as it makes sense in terms of the new board and allowing them to get their feet under them. But I hope that it's referred for further discussion, and I don't think we can really do that justice tonight. And I think Trustee Whitaker has highlighted some questions that I think we should be considering before we pass it. And I also hope that by delaying or through a referral to ops, that it gives the ad hoc committee, who is supposed to be overseeing the current plan, an opportunity to meet and really feed in to our discussion about process moving forward in developing a new plan.
Thanks, Trustee Duncan. I'm going to put myself on the list here and just say, I appreciate what I'm hearing from my colleagues about really wanting to give the new board ownership of this work. They will have ownership of this work because they will be the new board. to the point Trustee Duncan raised about the new board getting their feet under them. Us starting this now allows that to happen. I personally, and this is just my perspective, I don't feel that delaying this until a November operations committee meeting, which will be the second meeting of the new board, is, for lack of a better word, fair. And perhaps that's not the right word to use, but it's the only word that comes to mind. We have the ability and the capacity as the current board with 4 years of experience doing this work, and certainly more for those who've been at the board longer, of knowing how to set this up the right way. And it would be very inconsistent of me personally to have voted in favor of the previous motion on the budget process, but vote against doing this one now. So just for the purposes of being consistent and keeping moving forward on these to, Trustee Henson's point and Trustee Leonard's point, we still have work to do. Let's keep doing it until November 1st. So
Can I amend the motion to read October's ops meeting?
you can amend, yeah, we're only one deep, so you can amend the amended referral to be November ops. You need a seconder. Okay, seconded by Trustee Duncan. So the referral motion, the amendment to refer has been further amended to be October ops. Trustee Whitaker, did you want to motivate?
Other than I don't have a problem with this board doing the preliminary work. I just really do, as I think it was Trustee Duncan that started out that way. I too, when I saw this, didn't have a complete understanding of what is being presented. And I would like the opportunity, rather than at 10:45 at night in the ops meeting, to have a better understanding so I can feel really good about what I'm approving.
Okay. So we have a motion to amend the referral motion to October ops. Any further discussion? Trustee Rob Painter.
Yeah, I'm happy to move forward with October. My concern is quite literally right now, this is coming in whole cloth. And to suggest that this board, by passing it now as it is, in any way, shape, or form adds value to what could easily be accomplished at a future meeting by a different board, the board that's actually going to have to do the work, adopting the same thing, is lost to me. To my recollection, Trustee Hensa and perhaps Trustee Ferris are the only people who had anything to do with the ad hoc planning committee. So the rest of us haven't even been actively engaged in this work in the past. So we're not adding any value to the process either. I'm at a complete loss as to think how we're advancing anything on behalf of a new board. If anything, approving it right now only means that they have more work to undo if they want to go back and do something else. We're getting in the way of people who are going to have to do the work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On the amendment to refer to October ops, any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question on the amendment to refer to October ops. All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please signify. Those opposed. And the motion to amend carries. So now the amendment is to amend the motion to be to October ops. So we need to vote on that, because it is now the amendment itself is amended. So all of those in favor of the amendment to move to October ops, please signify. Those opposed. And the amendment carries. So now the motion as amended reads that the Board of Education of School District 61 approved long-range facilities plan 24 to 30 process as presented be referred to October ops. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify. All those opposed. And the motion carries with Trustee Leonard and Trustee Ferris opposed and the balance in favor. Before we carry on, staff, we went kind of quickly through those amendments, referrals. Did staff capture who voted for and against? Yeah, okay, great.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, so so the amendment to move to change the referral motion to October, opposed was Trustee Leonard, myself, Trustee Hansa, and Trustee Ferris, with the balance in favor. That carried. Then the vote on the amendment, the full amendment to go to October, was the same. Trustee Leonard, myself, Trustee Hansa, Trustee Ferris opposed, the balance in favor. That carried. And then the final vote was all in favor except Trustee Leonard and Trustee Ferris. Okay, thank you. D, 2022-23 enrollment update. Over to Secretary Treasurer Morris, I believe. Yes.
Just a quick update to let you know that our 1701 date is coming rapidly, and that right now we're showing some fairly static enrollment in terms of headcount to last year, and we have not met our projection yet this year in terms of our 1701. Given that there's still 4 days to hit that snapshot, I know schools are working very hard to get all their courses and different kinds of data in. But just to give a quick update, I know people are wondering, we seem to be fairly static right now with a lot of secondary numbers to come in. So more to come on that. Just a quick update for tonight.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on this piece? Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. Will we get an update on our international numbers for this coming year or what's expected?
Secretary Treasurer.
Yes, after 1701 is run, I'll bring a enrollment report, including international, to the October ops, I would say.
Thank you.
Trustee Waters.
Thank you. Kind of adjacent to the enrollment numbers, but I am thinking about our welcoming center that's just opened, and I know we've got quite a few Ukrainian students across our school district, and so I'm just really thinking about them and you know, how many refugee students we have and how we're able to support them, and if there are any extra needs to support that the board should be aware of. Yeah, me and my son are doing a little Ukrainian Duolingo to try and learn a little bit to support a kid in their class. And I'm sure there's families across the district doing similarly. So I just would love to hear how we're doing to support those kiddos. Not right now.
Yeah, staff can take that for information and maybe come back to at policy or operations with a bit of an update for us. But thanks, Trustee Waters. I think that's probably on a lot of our minds. So thank you for bringing that up. Any further comments or questions on the enrollment update? Oh, okay.
My cat, sorry.
No, that's okay. I just didn't know what it was. We'll go to question period. So just off the bat, we have several questions that have come in from folks around the suspensions. I want to, and the judicial review that nullified those suspensions, for lack of a better word, allowing trustees Painter and McNally to come back to the table. I want to do justice to those questions, but because the board has not yet met to discuss the ruling, what it means, get support from legal counsel, these questions are not something that we can put forward to the public at this time. However, in order for us to keep track of them, I have forwarded them all to our community community engagement inbox. I have informed our communications person to keep track of them and bring them back next October, next board meeting. I'm assuming at that point the board will have met and dealt with the majority of the questions that have been raised by people this evening. But my concern is the questions are put in such a way that much of what was raised at the very beginning of our meeting tonight is along the same veins. And I feel personally that we will be able to address these questions once the board has met and discussed the content of what has transpired. but I didn't want to lose track of them. So I've sent them all to community engagement. So we have a list. I've asked them to be brought back. Trustee Duncan, I have one more question to add that's been brought in that I can answer. Do you mind if I do that first, or did you want to? Yeah, okay.
That's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can make my comment afterward.
Yep. So this question, one of the main mandates of the board is to be transparent and accessible to the public. Why on earth is this meeting being done through Zoom? This does not allow the public to interact with trustees, ask questions, and get responses in real time. As a stakeholder, I feel completely shut out of this process. As I was looking forward to attending tonight, this board seems to completely fail in its responsibilities, and I certainly hope the new board immediately brings back in-person meetings. So my recollection, and I'm open to being corrected by the superintendent or staff who can probably correct me because I may have this wrong. I believe the board discussed going back into public in either the end of May or I think it was the May board meeting. And it was agreed at that time that we were going to continue appearing on Zoom because of the logistical challenges of what Zoom has meant for public engagement and capacity for trustees to be at home and other people to tune in to our meetings, and the desire to ensure that we have the technology to kind of maintain the kind of online engagement that we have had, as other mayor and councils have done in this period of time, where they have allowed more online virtual engagement with what local government is doing. So that's where I think we're at right now. I don't know what our plans are currently, but I'm certainly open to Superintendent Whitten, if she can update us perhaps on where we are moving forward with the boardroom, perhaps where she thinks we might land come November when the new board is in place.
Yes, I think it was a commitment on staff to look for ways to ensure there's accessibility if the board determines that they return to in person, while still recognizing some may wish to come in virtually. And so we are working through that technology, which includes microphones and cameras and things. So as it stood at the end of last year, I believe the beginning of the year would start with Zoom and the YouTube continuing. And the new board would be tasked with deciding how they would want to move forward in the meetings after.
Thank you for that. So I'll go first. Trustee Whitaker, is it on this topic, this question? Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned it's not about the meeting. It's very clear, the boardroom, nobody can hear us talking or even knows who's speaking with our technology. But in what you read out, what I heard that concerned me the most was that it was a stakeholder that is trying to access, or it almost sounds like they weren't given the invite and that they weren't at the table. I don't know who sent that, but if one of our stakeholders was trying to be at this meeting and wasn't able to log on, I think that's on us. Maybe it was short notice, but you did read it out and say that that was a stakeholder that couldn't interact. Only stakeholders can interact with us at the board meeting, so that raises concern. Our ops meetings, that's where the public can interact with us, is at the committee meeting. So I just want to make that clear, and then whoever has sent that, or you can read that and make sure that that wasn't one of our stakeholder groups, that just because they haven't been attending for forever, just that got missed. Can we please follow up on that? Because I don't want any of our stakeholders that do have the right to be here somehow not in the future. Especially, I'm disappointed that they weren't able to be here tonight because I would like to see them.
I don't know about the it's not a name. It's a name I'm familiar with, but I'm not sure if they are a stakeholder in the sense of who's at the table. But what I have done is I've referred it, I have sent it to Superintendent Whitten for her to respond if that is the case, and we'll just make sure if that is the case that we can connect this person in future. Yeah. Okay, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to go back to this question of whether we should be reading question period questions into the record, whether we can provide a response tonight or not. And I just want to suggest to the board that we have a question period for a reason. We are not obliged, if we are not able to answer the questions in the meeting, to answer them. We write in our question period policy, we note that where we can't provide response, we will provide one later on, and then let the record reflect, the record being the minute of the meeting, reflect the answers when we're able to provide them. So I think tonight what we should be doing, even if we can't answer the questions, is reading the questions into the record. I think it's just a respectful way to interact with the public who has questions.
So I'll turn to the Board of Trustees for direction on this, because this is the board's work, although the question period piece is at the discretion of the chair as per policy, but I serve at the will of the board. So I'm going to go to Trustee Leonard, Trustee Waters, and Trustee Whitaker. So Trustee Leonard, go ahead.
I believe that I heard the board chair say that he was going to read those questions at a board meeting after we'd had a meeting of the board to discuss the questions at hand, so that they would be read into a future board meeting as part of the record. I don't believe it's appropriate yet until the board has had a chance to have a meeting about what has transpired over the last 3 days. And so I understand that that's what I heard the chair say, is that they would be read into the record at a meeting where we would have answers for them. But we don't have that yet. And so I think I would just like to say that was what I heard as his commitment. So that's what I'm fine with that tonight.
Yeah, Trustee Leonard, just to confirm, yes, my commitment has not only been to forward these questions so they are not lost to community engagement, but to commit that they are put on the record in October for October's board meeting, because I anticipate every likelihood that we will be able to answer these questions in our October board meeting. I don't imagine we won't be able to, but if not, I will even commit to read them out there anyways, so that they are into the record. So I make that commitment. Trustee Waters, go ahead.
I just want to point out that it's 11 p.m.
And thank you.
I think that this is an example of a policy that really does need a redo, because it's never worked quite right when we've done it because when I was board chair, we would often read the questions in and then provide answers later, and they became kind of severed and disjointed, and people would see their questions but not their answers, and that caused frustration. And so, like, I see Chair Painters trying to sort of adjust that, and it's still not a perfect solution. I see Trustee Duncan working hard to find a way to make sure that it's super respectful of the people who are answering the questions, and I'm okay with whatever we do. But I do think that this is a whole policy that needs to be looked at by the board, by the new board. So I will vote whichever way will get us all out of this meeting quickly, because I think you just can never make good decisions after 11 p.m.
It's true, and we are past time, but I will quickly go to Trustee Whitaker, and then there's no motion, so I've answered the question. We'll go to the last couple of questions, and if there's no motion, we'll go to adjourn. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're saying, that we haven't had a meeting yet. I'm obviously wish that we had a meeting to discuss those things. But I would like to, obviously this is precedent setting. None of us have been through this before. Who would ever have thought that this would have happened 4 years ago? But I think that those questions that you've received are very informative to the board. And as much as you've forwarded those to community engagement, I would like to also have them forwarded to me. Those types of questions from the public are what inform and help me to understand the areas that I need to look at more deeper and more fulsome. So I appreciate that you've sent them to our communications person, but can you please send all of the trustee questions to the board, or the board questions to all the trustees, so that we all have a good, fair understanding?
Yep, I will send all trustee questions to all trustees at the conclusion of the meeting this evening. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, so I guess I need to clarify for my colleagues what I'm trying to point out. So we've got a bylaw, 9360.01, about question period during general meetings of the Board of Education. So the board chair does in fact have discretion under paragraph 8 to call questions out of order. and the writer of any question ruled out of order will be contacted, and the question ruled out of order will be brought to the next in-camera board meeting. Otherwise, the obligation as a board under the bylaw is that the person's question is entered into the record by reading it. So I guess that's what I'm trying to point out, is that maybe it should have been a point of order. Pardon me if I haven't put it across clearly, but it's just that, we have an obligation under a bylaw. I don't, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, I don't think you're calling the question out of order. I believe what you're saying is that it would be your preference to wait until the board's met to discuss some of the matters that might be highlighted by the questions. So I'm just suggesting that we follow our bylaw, we read the questions into the record. If we can't answer them tonight, then we would do what we always do, which is come back and answer them through the minute and to the requester when we can answer them.
Okay, yeah, and to your point, as has been said by various speakers tonight, we are in unprecedented times with what has happened at this board table. There are things that we did not anticipate 4 years ago to come down, and we are working through managing these together as best we can. This is not an effort to silence questions. This is not an effort to shirk public accountability or transparency. This is an effort to try to put the board's work as the chair, as the presiding officer, and as someone who is trying to help the board come together and work through this together. My feeling is that these questions would be well put to the board, as has been suggested by Trustee Whitaker, which I'm happy to do, and we can discuss and come to an answer to these in 3 weeks, or when the next board meeting is. But again, I serve if the board wants to direct me to do something else, they absolutely can. Trustee McNally, and then I'll go back to Trustee Duncan. No, sorry, Trustee McNally, I thought I saw your hand up. Okay, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, so I just would then, I guess we'll need a motion so that we can vote and decide. So I recommend that I'll put forward a motion that the Board of Education follow our bylaw 9220, let me just go to the 9360.01 and read the period questions into the record. I think that does it. And so hopefully somebody will see the merit of doing that.
Okay, so moved, seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Is there discussion? I'll be abstaining from this. So I'm going to let folks debate or discuss if they'd like. Trustee Leonard.
I'm not in favor of this because, number one, I don't know what the questions are and whether or not they are. We haven't had a discussion with trustees. We haven't had a discussion with the board. We haven't had a discussion with our legal counsel. I'm not quite sure what the questions are. And so at this point in time, I think we have to I'm not in favor of reading them into the record. I will be in favor of reading them into the record once we've had legal advice and once we've gone through a process of talking with the board and going through a whole slew of things that we need to talk about with what has transpired in the last 3 days. As we've said, this is unprecedented. So I'm not in favor of this motion at this time. And I don't think it's contravening bylaw that was quoted to read them into the record at another meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan, or sorry, Trustee McNally.
Thank you. I don't think we need to worry too much about the questions that might come forward. We do have a ruling from the BC Supreme Court, and they're generally considered to be a reliable outfit. So I'm in favor of having the questions printed in the minutes since it's past 11. And if we read them all out now, I think some of us will just reach overload, but I want them in the minutes.
Okay, any other discussion? Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear. What I'm hearing from Trustee Duncan is that she's asking the board to follow its policies and processes. And what I'm hearing from other trustees at the table is that we want to bend those bylaws and use them as allows us to control a message or to control not letting out a message. So I think really if this board were following good governance and we're committed to it, we just follow our own bylaws It's unfortunate that we've had to spend so much time debating whether or not we would follow our bylaws, but that's where I stand, and I will go with the majority as I always do, but I don't have to appreciate it. I think there just comes a point where we just have to follow our own rules, whether we like it or not.
Thank you, and welcome anyone who wants to read the bylaws to go ahead and read it. This is absolutely what we are doing. Trustee Duncan, you can close.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So, you know, I didn't intend to get into a debate about the bylaw. I think it's pretty clear that if the chair has, that the chair does have discretion to call questions out of order. That's not what I've heard the chair do tonight. It's a preference of the chair, and not the chair calling the questions out of order, which is within the discretion of the chair. So again, I just, you know, I expect that we follow our bylaws, and I don't believe that we're doing that by delaying putting the questions on the record. And you know, I think that this, you know, yeah, I'd like to think that the easy things, which should be following our bylaws, that we just do, rather than get into a debate and avoid the fact that we're not following our bylaw.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please signify. That is in favor
Could you,
of.
Chair, could you please clarify what the question is?
Yep. Trustee Duncan, please clarify your motion. Sorry, my apologies, everyone. I thought it was read out. Go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, that the Board of Education follow its bylaw. Let me get the number. It's 93 something, 9360.01, and read the questions provided by the public into the record.
Okay, are we all clear on the question being asked? Thank you, trustees. All those in favor of the motion? Those opposed? And abstentions? Sorry, I am freezing out here. I don't see Trustee Hensa. Have we lost Trustee Hensa? I think we have. So I'm abstaining, so the motion carries. So I will read out the questions as per the motion.
I just note that we are also, as a point of order, we are now outside of our bylaws for how we run our meetings, and that it's 10 minutes, 40 minutes past when they should end. So if you want to keep going, then we're going to need a motion to do that.
I do need a motion to extend.
Personally, I've been at work since 7 a.m. this morning, as I'm sure lots of other people have, and it's a really, really long day.
Yeah, so I need a motion to extend for 5 minutes. I should be able to read these for 5 minutes. Trustee Whitaker moved, Trustee Duncan seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed? And abstentions? And it carries. All right. First question, since most of this board acted fascistically and against the rule of law, will the individual members who illegally removed the other board members be covering the cost of their litigation, which took money away from children and classrooms? Second question, I would like to ask the following questions at tonight's board meeting. Number one, role of the trustee, pages 95 to 97. Based on Judge Hardwick's decision regarding the suspensions of trustees McNally and Painter that the board did not have the authority to suspend them, will the board add the following to the role of trustees page 95 to 97? A, the board is also accountable for their collective decisions as per 3.3. B, the board is also accountable to the electorate as per 3.4. And C, how will the Board of Education ensure that they are in compliance with the School Act, Workers' Compensation Act, WorkSafe, and policies of the board as per 4.1, the Board of Education, and that the board does not get itself in the same crisis where they are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees rather than spending the money on supporting students in SD61. 2. Why was Trustee McNally and Painter listed as suspended in all meetings until September 15th, at which time it was changed to sanctioned? I would like an explanation on both minutes, please. Thank you. And more questions here. Just bear with me as I find them. Where are we here? Will the board commit to investigating and eventually sanctioning any trustee determined to have acted illegally in a January 25th, 2022 in-camera meeting? In the board's view, is it fair for trustees Leonard Ferris, Hensa Waters, and Ryan Painter to escape the appropriate consequences or sanctions for the illegal actions taken against their colleagues through the course of this year? And 2 questions regarding agenda item D3. Paragraph 2 on page 129 at the, this is a new question in, so this one I can read. Paragraph 2 on page 129 of the agenda package, slide 1765, Lansdowne 2780 Richmond Road, indicates that the purchase and sale agreement between SD61 and Victoria Hospice Society has been amended 6 times since it was first signed in September 2021, including 4 times after the board approved the bylaw to dispose of the property on March 14th, 2021. On what authority was the purchase and sale agreement amended after the passing of the bylaw? Given the BC Supreme Court's recent reminder that as a statutory body, the Board of Education must have the authority to undertake such actions, and that the authority to dispose of land is gained through a specific process that was, in my opinion, not followed, can you please clarify what actions the board will take pertaining to this attempted disposition in light of a recent judicial clarification? So, right, that's the piece that also cannot be answered right now. So I will forward all of those to the board. Can I please have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Moved by
adjourn.
trustee Leonard, seconded by trustee Waters. All those in favor,
They'll
please
send all those
signify.
questions though.
All those opposed. And